Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, January 21st, 2021. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the show today, the executive editor of the American Prospect, David Dayen, and the senators negotiating Biden's legacy. Meanwhile, Biden pumping out executive orders beginning to unravel the Trump era. The new administration reveals that they have now found no vaccine plan that was even developed by Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Biden enhances LGBTQ protections, and the Biden administration immediately fires some of the most egregious Trump appointees. Democrats rebuff Mitch McConnell, keep the door open to nuking the filibuster. Meanwhile, Romney and Murkowski want to tap the brakes on COVID relief. With over 4,000 COVID deaths yesterday, states are complaining they don't have enough vaccine doses. And the sad story of QAnon believers who are struggling to accept that Biden's inauguration actually happened. Lastly, Chicago teachers vote to authorize a walkout beginning of next week. And Democrats await the articles of impeachment in the Senate while Donald Trump is trying to find some lawyers. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. With me, as always, Emma Vigeland. Emma, hello. How are you?
I'm doing okay. You know, I just learned some disturbing news that the My Pillow guy dated Jenna from 30 Rock, Jane Krakowski. This is what is bothering me on this Thursday morning, or now afternoon at this point.
That sounds pretty disturbing.
You never slept better in your life.
It sounds like something Jenna would do, maybe not the actress, but.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. Well, I guess, the Have Pillow will travel. It is the first day of the Biden administration, or the another way to look at it that I think a lot of people are looking at it this way. It's the first day without Donald Trump as president. And I have to admit, I think we've talked about yesterday on the program. We're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about for the days forward. There's a very different feel with this incoming Democratic president than Barack Obama in some respects. I think Biden has learned the lessons of the early days of the Obama administration to some extent. And I think progressives have certainly learned the lesson from the early days of the Obama administration, including the transition, in terms of how much space they're going to give Joe Biden. I don't think it's going to be as much as was given Barack Obama. And of course, we also have a raging pandemic. And the Biden transition, this comes up, we'll talk to David Dayen about this. The transition team apparently has the ability now to sort of basically spill the beans and say, when we met with the Trump people, they had no plan whatsoever for vaccination distribution. And it's quite obvious. I mean, I think around the country, certainly we're feeling it in New York. New York got a smaller amount of doses this week than they did the week before. Bill de Blasio had to announce the closing of more than a half a dozen vaccination sites because there's simply no vaccine.
Well, it's almost as if the Trump team just, once they knew they weren't going to remain, didn't care about putting any infrastructure in place to ensure vaccinations throughout the country.
I mean, that's, I think, even a charitable look at it, because they should have been putting that into place in August. I mean, we knew at one point there was going to be a vaccine. Maybe they didn't know it was going to be in November. Maybe they thought it was going to be in February or March or April of this year. But you're going to need that infrastructure to produce it, and better earlier than later. At least come up with a plan. Nothing.
Well, that's a little bit tough for the Trump team, but thinking ahead, being strategic.
Well, I
think doing governing is.
This is a failure, and it's a Republican failure, frankly. Yeah. And there is a disdain for government by the Republicans, and it shows when they are tasked to operate the levers of a functioning government. But let's turn our attention for a moment to the most of unreasonable expectations of Joe Biden. And it's not even that it's the expectation is unreasonable, although it is. It's also that when you are faced with 400,000 Americans dead, when you are faced yesterday on Inauguration Day, over 4,000 Americans died of COVID. When you are faced with, we had again, over 900,000 new unemployment claims announced today. Every week that has passed since the beginning of this epidemic, the number of jobless claims has been higher than at any other period in our history, starting in 1967, where they started to measure these unemployment claims at that time. So through the Great Recession, we are a country in deep, deep material crisis. There's an epidemic. People are dying. People are losing their jobs. People can't pay for food. We have massive food lines. And one of the sort of, I guess, slight criticisms we had, although this is an important function for the president, I can understand that about yesterday, was that there was a lot of soaring rhetoric, a lot of metaphor. I don't want to say pablum, but there was stuff in there that was really just to make us feel good and feel some type of sense that our democracy is safe. I think that's a legitimate function.
Patriotism of politics of like 30, 40 years ago.
But I think there's a certain role for the president to play, but the press should be better, and they're not. Here is CNN. Here's Jim Scuto. This is a CNN anchor calling out to the president. This is really the least relevant question as to what Joe Biden needs to get done with all of those challenges that I just enumerated.
Mr. President, can you unite the country? It's quite a moment, Jake, because this is something we did not know we would see today, given the security.
If I had a moment to ask Joe Biden, the incoming president, something, might not be that, especially because that's the only thing Joe Biden talks about. I mean, not the only thing, but his number one talking point, number one piece of rhetoric is unity, unity. I'm going to unite. I'm not going to divide. Unity, unity. Not really at the top of my mind, not a burning question. Are you focused on unity, Joe Biden? Pretty sure he is.
Well, and the funny thing is that, it's one thing for Joe Biden to call for unity of the American people, but the idea that Joe Biden can unite people, this just came out in the Washington Post today. Over 70% of Republicans said they agreed with President Trump's contention. This is a study that was done with 2,600 registered voters. It was done about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Over 70% of Republicans said they agreed with President Trump's contention that he received more votes than Joe Biden. And this is across the board with the Republicans. It's not a non-college educated Republican. It was across the board with Republicans. They gave them 3 statements, all false. 1, millions of fraudulent mail-in and absentee ballots were cast in this past election. 2, voting machines were manipulated to add tens of thousands of votes for Joe Biden. And 3, thousands of votes were recorded for dead people. Those were the statements they gave. And more than 50% of Republican respondents said it was very accurate. Those 3 false statements, 50%, over 50% said they were very accurate statements. Over 75% of Republicans either said they were very accurate statements or somewhat accurate statements. There is no unifying the country. I don't even know what that means in the sense that is everybody going to be on the same page? The answer is no. However, the one thing that I think if you were to ask them is it a bad thing to have 400,000 people dead? Is it a bad thing to have 4,000 people dying on that day of COVID? Is it a bad thing to have millions of Americans unemployed? Millions of Americans in food lines? I think the answer is probably yes. And then I think the real question that the press should be asking, the media should be asking is, what are you going to do to fix that? Period. End of story. However,
I mean, the question, just quickly, the question should be, how are you going to unify the country? How are you going to do it? I mean, my view is you increase people's material well-being because people are really hurting right now. But that doesn't need to be CNN's question there. It shouldn't be, are you going to unite the country? I mean, Biden could just go, yeah. All right. End of story. End of question.
And to be fair, it's not just CNN that's obsessed with that question. Here's Ainsley Earhart on Fox News, and she feels that it's going to be very disunifying if Joe Biden does anything as president.
So our country's got to come together. And Joe Biden said yesterday, I want unity. He talked about that in his speech. But the first thing he does, the first order of business, is to walk in, sit down at the table, and he has 17 executive orders, really wiping away much of what President Trump did. So his supporters are saying, how can we have unity if you're taking away everything that we like?
Pause it for 1 second. The first one that they put up there is that you've got to wear a mask in federal buildings.
Yeah.
How tyrannical.
That critique would be in a bit of better faith if Trump hadn't just barged into the White House 4 years later and ripped up everything that had Obama's scent on it, or anything Obama touched, tried to set it on fire. Ridiculous.
Continue to play with, we got to play that clip.
You're taking away everything that we like.
You have those scrolling across your
COVID
screen right now, those 17 executive orders. There's too many to list off, but we can just highlight a few. Ending President Trump's 1776 Commission, rejoining the World Health Organization. Of course, there was a lot of criticism for who,
Keystone is the one they're mad at.
Of COVID across this world. Rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement, and many, many more. Speaking of the Paris Climate Agreement, there is, of course, this push to rejoin the world's effort to battle climate change. Joe Biden is making it one of the first things he wants to do in his administration. Well, Mark Moreno, he's executive editor of ClimateDepot.com.
Okay, we don't need to see any more of that.
It's like a highlight reel.
Yeah, I know. And I like how what they extend the eviction moratorium until September. That was one of the things on that scroll.
So
that
disunifying.
Was Trump's policy. That was Trump's policy, but it's disunifying for him to extend it. It's disunifying for me, or it's irritating to me that he's not going further than that. And still has not made an effort quite yet to cancel any cent of student debt. So that's
all right. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking to David Dayen, executive editor of the American Prospect, on all of these executive orders and much more. We'll be right back after this. Folks, today's sponsor of the Majority Report is BetterHelp Online Counseling. They're giving our audience 10% off their first month when you go to betterhelp.com/Majority Report. BetterHelp gives you access to your own fully licensed and accredited therapist via phone, chat, or video. I think people are aware of this, but a lot of therapists elsewhere have long wait lists. It can take weeks. It can take months before they can see you. But when you sign up with BetterHelp, they match you with a therapist based on your specific needs. And they do so within 24 hours. You'll be talking to them. I think, stressful time. folks have anxiety. I myself am, and feeling it. I'd imagine others are. I think in some ways, my feeling about the Trump era is sort of like when you're, holding off for vacation, and all of a sudden you get a cold. Like all of a sudden, I've found the end of the Trump era to be sort of a rush of things that I feel like I was not dealing with.
That you were directing towards the Trump
honestly, I have that feeling. But
wow.
BetterHelp is a great way. If you've never done therapy, this is a great way to start it. And if you have done therapy, but you don't have a therapist at the moment, this is also a great way because you find a therapist almost immediately. And if you don't think it's a good fit, you can switch to a new one at any time for any reason for no additional charge. They have thousands of licensed therapists all over the country. They have therapists with specialties that may not be available in your area. BetterHelp also tends to be more affordable than the therapist you'd find through traditional means. You don't have to have insurance to have BetterHelp, and they have financial aid options for those who qualify. BetterHelp is giving everyone in our audience 10% off your first month when you go to betterhelp.com/majority report. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/majority report. You can find the link in our YouTube description and in our podcast description. Also, this one always makes me blush a little bit, but I'm sorry, folks. I'm not gonna lie. I'm enjoying it. It's a creature comfort. New year, new rear, new year, 2021. Don't just make a commitment to wash your hands every time you go to the loo, as it were. Go the extra mile and wash your butt. The brand new Hello Tushy 3.0 modern bidet attachment is finally here. It's stylish, it's eco-friendly, it's easy to install, and it's affordable. Now, I have the old version, but they just sent me a new one. I'm going to try that out, and it's super easy to install. All you need to do is be able to unscrew the, it's literally, you can do it with any type of wrench. You don't need any real tools or anything. It's super easy. You don't need any more plumbing. You don't need any additional electricity. It cuts toilet paper use by 80%. So if we ever get into one of those situations again, folks, where, people are mad rush for toilet paper, you don't worry about it. It doesn't just cleanse your butt with a precise stream of water, this 3.0 one. It cleans itself before and after it's used with the Smart Spray automatic self-cleaning nozzle. Sanitation is simple. Smush Sealed offers easy cleaning. The knobs are naturally antimicrobial. I can't say that word. Plus, every Hello Tushy bidet attachment comes with a 60-day risk-free guarantee and a 12-month warranty. If you don't like it, you take it off your toilet, you send it back. Upgrade to the new 3.0 model if you're already hooked on Hello Tushy, or if you're new to the revolution, join millions of happy customers right now. Have a clean butt with every flush. Go to hellotushy.com/majority. You get 10% off plus free shipping. This is a special offer for our listeners. Go to hellotushy, TUSHY.com/majority for 10% off. hellotushy.com/majority. Also, folks, just a reminder, Nomiki is doing her show at 3 p.m. every day, Tuesday through Friday. You can check out her show today, youtube.com/The Nomiki Show, or on Twitch, which is _Nomiki_show on Twitch. And today's guest, Harvey K. Representative Rob and Arun Chaudhry will be on with Nomiki. Check that out. Also, as always, you can support this program by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. You get the free show, commercial free, and you get extra content every day. Okay, now on with the show. We are back. Joining us now is the executive editor of the American Prospect. And I got us to start off, David Dayen. And let me just first start off, David. Of course, I've been interviewing you for an extended period of time. But I got to tell you, the reporting that you guys have done over the American Prospect in terms of leading up to the Biden inauguration, in terms of who they were going to pick for some key spots was amazing. You guys out-reported some of the biggest newspapers and reporting and media enterprises in the country. So kudos on that. And you also at the American Prospect have been writing about Joe Biden's day one agenda for months, if not a year, I think, or certainly by the time he got the nomination. And it was, and I think when you started, it was not Joe Biden's day one agenda. It was whoever the president was. Well, we are now in day two of the Biden administration. I want to get into what's happening in the Senate and in terms of the COVID relief, but give us a sense of what Joe Biden did yesterday and today. And of course, on some level, it's a metaphor, right? But what he's done so far relative to A, what he can do, and B, what he projected he would do.
Right. I mean, the day one agenda is just sort of a stand-in for executive action. And, we outlined starting September 2019, what the executive actions could be that the next Democratic president could take. So here comes Biden on day one. And the vast majority of what he did was reversing Trump actions. Some of those very laudable reversals, ending construction of the border wall, ending the migrant protection program, and a lot of really cruel immigration programs, rejoining the Paris Agreement, and so on. Getting back to the status quo of 2016, I mean, in a sense, that's great. It's also, not exactly an expansive vision for executive action. It just sort of puts us back to where we were. And, presidents often do this. They reverse, they do the easy work of reversing the actions of their predecessor. There's a thing called the Mexico City rule, which is around abortion law. And I think it's been added and subtracted in every administration since, I think, Clinton. And on day one, the first you put it up and then you bring it down, and then you put it up, bring it down. So this is kind of normal. The one thing that was actually in our day one agenda package that Biden actually enacted on day one was this very obscure thing called the social cost of carbon. And let me explain it. We had a guy, Steve Novick, that wrote a piece for us about it. When you do regulation, you have to do this cost-benefit analysis of whether it's worth it to do the regulation. And you take into account on the cost side, not just the cost to businesses or things like that, but in terms of climate regulation, you take into account the social cost of putting carbon into the atmosphere. So what it means for communities, what it means for public health, what it means for all of these things. And they actually quantify this and they put it into a number. And under Trump, and even before that, under Obama, this number was absurdly low. So it made it not worth it to engage in climate regulation because the social cost was very, very low. So Biden on day one said, we're going to restart the interagency working group and within 30 days come up with an interim recalculation of the social cost of carbon to make it better reflect what the actual impact of carbon pollution is. That's really great. It's like under the radar, really into the weeds. Right. But it's one of those things that we looked at in the day one agenda that is, maybe unheralded, but really, really important in terms of tangible kind of results. So that was good. But I think overall you get kind of an incomplete here. You're reversing a bunch of Trump actions. That's great. But we need to go further. And, hopefully when people get into place, we'll start to see that.
Well, David, Yeah, just the most glaring thing that's missing for me when I'm looking over his immediate agenda is cancellation of any student loan debt. Can you talk about what you've heard on that front when it comes to any executive action? The bar keeps getting lower and lower in terms of the financial threshold, but he's extending the canceling of interest rates through September, or the 0% interest rate. But yeah. Obviously, there needs to be more action on that front.
Well, this is kind of what's amazing is that the authority that Biden is using, or Biden's education secretary is using, to pause payments and to cancel interest is the same authority that you would use to cancel student debt. So he's not denying that the ability is there, that the authority is inherent. He's just not going as far as needs to be gone. And of course, pausing the payments is just extending what the Trump administration had put in place as far as student debt. I know that the administration is aware of the ability to cancel student debt. I know that there are champions within the government for doing it. At what level is unclear. Biden during the campaign said he was going to present to Congress this plan to cancel $10,000, the first $10,000. That we thought was going to be in this 1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, and it wasn't. That didn't even make the first cut. So it's unclear where we are with that, but I mean, I know that there is at least some sense within the administration that this is something they can do and that they should do. The question is whether they will win that argument.
That's a great question, Emma, because I want to make it clear. I imagine there's a lot of people out there. I mean, look, there's a lot of people in this country who are very glad to see Donald Trump gone. And with more reasons than we could outline, probably in the context of at least one show, we would probably need hours for reasons for wanting Donald Trump gone. And there's a general sentiment of like, it's day one, give him a chance to catch his breath and get some people in there. But I think the student loan issue, whether you agree with cancellation of debt or not, and I certainly think that we should be doing, we should be doing that amount that Schumer and Warren called for, which was $50,000. But the point is that Joe Biden clearly knows he could do it. I just want to make it clear that this is a choice he's making in this moment. The effort that it took to extend that moratorium is exactly the exact same effort. You just need to use your signature and sign it, and that could have happened. It was really just a question of will and choice. And so that's why these things, that's, I think, a perfect example of why it's fair to talk about this on day two as to what happened on day one.
One thing about that, Sam, is that on their way out the door, the education department, Betsy DeVos's education department, put out this memo that tried to make a legal case for why the education department cannot cancel student debt. And the person who did it, the counsel, the lawyer who wrote this memo, previously worked at the Chamber of Commerce. And there are about 15 legal citations in the memo, and almost all of them are from opinions joined by or written by Antonin Scalia. So it was an extremely partisan effort on the part of the education department, just kind of build something that conservatives can then go back to and say, hey, the education department said that you can't do this. It was based on, a lot of half readings of statutes and things like that. And it was all Scalia based, which was kind of amazing to me.
Yes, long tentacles. And all right, well, there's a bunch of other things I want to talk about. And obviously we'll get to the COVID vaccine, because that is, I think there's enormous mandate for him to do something about that. Maybe we should start there. In fact, it's being reported today now that the Biden transition team feels unshackled in terms of what they can talk about, what they found when they started to work with the Trump administration on the transition. Now that they're not worried about upsetting the feelings of the Republicans who worked for Trump, they're saying there was no plan, none whatsoever in terms of a vaccine. So Joe Biden has signaled, if not actually begun, the process of essentially launching the Defense Production Act. What areas is he going to use this? I mean, it seems to me from what I'm reading, among everything else, including the type of syringes so that you can actually get 5 doses out of the Pfizer, there seems to be a lack of vaccine. And it seems to me that like producing the vaccine is the greatest need right now.
Well, yeah, it's a real concern. We have a great piece today, actually, by Olivia Webb. It's a feature for our next issue about the difference between vaccine production and vaccine distribution. In vaccine production, the government really got involved, this whole Operation Warp Speed thing. They funded the vaccine effort. They gave government like purchase guarantees. They cleared up things in the supply chain. They really used their contracting power to accelerate this vaccine production, which normally takes years, and we got it done in 9 months. And then they took a completely laissez-faire approach to the distribution part of it, and you see how it's starting to struggle and wane from there.
Can I just clarify distribution and production? By production, are you talking about the development?
I'm talking about the development of the vaccine. Yes. And then by distribution, I'm talking about getting the vaccine into people's arms.
But
so
in between there, you also need to produce more.
And
more
doses. there was a lot of production that was sort of pre-positioned, but certainly not enough. And one thing we're seeing, particularly on the Moderna side, is that their promises for 100 million shots by the end of March seem to be now unrealistic. They would need to produce 1 million shots per day in order to get to that point, just as a production matter. And they're producing about 300,000 per day. So this is a real problem. And, if you look at this, I mean, the Defense Production Act is what? It's a Korean War era law that was about scaling up to a war mobilization effort. And if you look at this as a war, which really it is in terms of, the level of response that we need, that should be going into using whatever resources we have available. And frankly, it should have been months ago, because you got to retool a plant in order to, get it ready for vaccine production. You got to retool a plant to make sure it can work. So this should have been in place a long, long time ago, but we should be doing whatever possible. So that means the syringes, the supplies, and things like that. It also means ingredients that go into the vaccine, because there are a lot of different things that have to go into creating and producing the vaccine, and then retooling the factories to do the vaccine itself. Now, one thing that you could do that Biden hasn't done yet is say, okay, Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, all these other companies that were trying to create the first vaccine, those plants are, the ones that could most easily be converted to the vaccine that we know works and that we have emergency use authorization for. You could go to those companies and say, I have the Defense Production Act. I am demanding that you convert your plant into making the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, and Pfizer and Moderna are going to give you the ingredients so that you are able to do that. So that's one thing that can be done.
And of course, I would imagine there would be pushback from the Johnson & Johnson, because we get more profit if we sell our own, et cetera, et cetera. I mean,
right. But they're compelled under the Defense Production Act, and they're paid for this, for this.
Right. There is a fair market profit that's given to them. It's just, it may not be the unfair market profit that they
the number one maximization of shareholder value may not be completely squeezed out, right? But
you know, I mean, the thing about the syringes is real. Like the difference between getting 5 doses out of a Pfizer vial and 6 is, you know, close to 20%. And you don't have to retool anything to do that. You just have to get the syringes with what they call low dead space, which means that you just don't waste as much per shot. And so, you know, what we don't know is some of the syringes that are being shipped by the government to these various vaccine locations, some of them have the low dead space syringes and some of them don't. And we don't know how many do and how many don't. So we can't really assess, you know, what the benefit in total would be from redoing the whole syringe supply chain and making sure we're maximizing.
I feel like there could be an entire industry built upon just the absolute failure of the Trump Republican administration on just doing this. I mean, this seems so fundamental, so rudimentary that honestly, I feel like a teenager, with all due respect to teenagers, could have basically outlined everything that needs to be done for the moment we're in now. I mean,
what you're talking about when you're doing it is war mobilization, and it means money, right? And every dollar we spend, you know, sometimes we talk about like the multiplier effect.
Right.
So like $1 of infrastructure gets you $1.50 of economic activity. $1 of vaccine spending probably gets you $10 of. I've seen reports, a conservative estimate, that every one day that we get closer to normalcy, in other words, every one day we get closer to herd immunity and we can reopen the country, means like $10 billion in economic activity. It's an insane number. And so, you know, that argues for let's do a bill that appropriates a massive amount of money for vaccines right now. Let's not wait for a reconciliation process that could take months and months and months and be elongated. Let's do that right now. And on the assumption that you would have bipartisan support to get the country back to normal. And if you don't, you can tag Republicans with that, like they want people to die and they want the economy to be crippled.
And then pass the $2,000 checks and UI
that
through reconciliation. Right.
Yes, I wrote this today at First 100, our new story series on the first 100 days. It's the checks and shots strategy. So you bundle together the $2,000 checks and money for vaccines, and that bill, in theory, can pass with 60 votes under regular order really fast. Okay. And that sounds like a skinny bill, but if you think about it, it's about $430 billion to top up these checks to 2,000. And if you make them just $2,000 checks, it's about $600 billion. And the money that Biden has asked for the vaccine, if you're including the Public Health Jobs Corps of 100,000 workers, if you're including money for testing, that's another $400 billion. This is almost the size of the December bill, the $900 billion bill. It's not skinny. It's a big bill, and it probably can pass. So let's do it.
All right. Well, let's talk about what's happening in the Senate, because there's I'm seeing reporting that there's a sort of like multiple tracks that are happening, and we'll talk a little bit about one thing that came out in the reporting in the past day or two is that Chuck Schumer has rebuffed Mitch McConnell's desire to basically commit to shelving the idea of filibuster reform as part of their 50-50 power sharing. And I think the power sharing is probably an overstatement in terms of what it actually means in practice, in the way that they organize the Senate. Let's go to that in a moment. But my understanding is that the Biden administration and the Biden transition team had already begun negotiations with a gang of 16, they're calling it, which is 8 Democrats, 8 Republicans who are presumably sort of the least conservative in the Republican Party and the most conservative in the Democratic Party, I think is probably the way to say it, ostensibly. And they're meeting supposedly to hammer out this deal. I just saw a report that said Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski are saying that the timing seems a little bit like the ink's not dry on that $900 billion. Right. Do you have a sense of what the state of play in those negotiations are and what the strategy is by the Biden administration in the way that they're approaching this? I mean, because it could be a myriad, right? It could be they're looking for that so-called skinny bill, which is really not that skinny, or they're looking for the Republicans to reject the whole thing so they can justify filibuster reform, or they're thinking reconciliation. Give us a sense of what you've heard in terms of what's going on with this.
Well, look, if you read the public statements of Murkowski and Romney, it's pretty clear that you're not going to get Republican support for the bill that Biden put out.
That's the $1.9 trillion bill.
Correct. I mean, you're not going to get Republican support for it. You're just not. And, I think that has triggered this idea of a skinny bill strategy, of a checks and shots strategy, because that might get 60 votes. And you could at least try that. And if it works, you get that done, and you put points on the board. You build trust because this is what you ran on in Georgia. And you get the money out fast, which you need to do on vaccines, and it would be good to do on checks. Already, the $600 bills you're seeing that raise sales in restaurants, for example. That was something that came out in the Wall Street Journal today. So. That's the idea, is that you do that skinny bill, and then you go back and you can, under reconciliation rules, do the rest of the bill, where you don't have to rely on Republican support. I think they're going to inevitably get to that idea. The question is when. I mean, right. And do we have to wait around when Mitt Romney and Lisa Murkowski, who are your most likely votes, or at least Murkowski is, are saying, I don't want to do this. I mean, take no for an answer and move on.
Well, what's your sense of what their timing's going to be? I mean, it sort of feels like we're watching a movie that we have watched a million times before during the Obama administration. And it's, you know what? We know how this ends. Right. Barack Obama, I think, wrote about it in his book on how it ends. Like, why do we have to stay to the end?
Right. What I have heard from the people I've talked to is that there is an understanding that there's kind of a deadline here. And that deadline is when the unemployment extension runs out again. And that is the middle of March. So they recognize that they're going to have to get something in place before then, because what we're seeing now is the fact that we waited so long until those programs actually expired for Donald Trump to finally sign the bill in December. That has still, 3 weeks later, led to millions of people who are not back up on those programs. I mean, it's just hard to turn around these very rickety state unemployment systems. And so there's an understanding that, yeah, we got to get that in place pretty soon, because there's a lag time here, and we don't want to go to the end again. And usually Congress doesn't get its act together until there's a deadline anyway. The question is, it's January 21st. Why do we have to wait until March 14th when these things expire, or to even the end of February? Let's get the reconciliation bill in motion. If we want to do checks and shots, let's do that. Let's get moving. But apparently the House is out next week, so we're already pushing this thing.
Let's talk just one more thing in terms of legislation, then one or two others. I know you're a little bit beginning to get pressed for time here, but the H1S1. HR1, I should say, S1. These HR1 was passed by the House in 2018. It is a sort of an omnibus bill, including all sorts of voting rights and anti-corruption measures. The Senate is, I think, going to look at the same thing. Do you have a sense of what the interplay like? And I think we saw an announcement the other day, or at least some reporting that Democrats are saying that that reconciliation bill may not come until the beginning of March, at least the big one. Maybe they do the skinny one in between there. Do you get a sense that there is some type of coordinated strategy of, if Mitt Romney says no to this, then the filibuster, then reconciliation? Is there any sequencing? Do you get the sense that they are gaming this out, or is it one of those things like, well, let's just see what happens and we'll decide in the moment?
I don't think there's a lot of strategy there. What I would say is that it does appear clear that the people who matter on the filibuster issue, people like Joe Manchin, people like Kirsten Sinema, John Hickenlooper, maybe, they need to be shown. I don't know why, but they need to be shown one more time that Republicans are going to obstruct any effort at progress. They need to be shown again. And so S1 is doomed. Like there's not going to be any Republican support for S1, for democracy reform. You have the folks down in Georgia right now at the state level saying, well, we really have to change these voting procedures, or else, Republicans are never going to be able to win here. I mean, that's like almost a direct quote from a state legislator in Georgia.
It is a direct quote, as far as I can tell. Yes.
So, you're just not going to get buy-in for, the kinds of things that are in HR 1 and S1. And so it's a choice. And I've seen Ezra Klein posit this, like, it's a choice that you can make. We can either have democracy reform or we can have the filibuster. By the same token, we can either have minimum wage, although maybe there are ways to finesse that in a reconciliation bill. But really, we can either have an increase in the minimum wage or we can have the filibuster. So, the choice is up to those individuals that are standing in the way. The problem is we don't have a good whip count on that. I mean, we know Manchin's probably against it. We know that Sinema might be. Dianne Feinstein might be against doing the filibuster. I mean, we don't know. And we should know. I mean, that should be an effort from the grassroots to try to find out where people are on filibuster reform, so we know how far we are away. I mean,
that's a good point. I don't know if people remember this, but back in 2005, in George Bush's second term, at the beginning of second term, he wanted to privatize Social Security. I think it was Talking Points memo that started essentially a grassroots whip count, where it was contact your congressperson, ask them where they stand on this. And it created pressure against those who were for privatizing Social Security. And I should just add, just so that people understand, when you talk about H1 and S1, and when you talk about the $15 minimum wage, these are, and the $15 minimum wages, there's a question about. But H1 and S1, because they deal with voting rights and like you say, democracy reforms, they don't affect the government's budget, and they cannot be included in the reconciliation process, which can only deal with legislation that fundamentally and non-incidentally affects the government budget.
But let me say one thing here, because I know you never miss an opportunity to praise Chuck Schumer. So I want to do that. He has not agreed to this bid by McConnell to get him on the record on keeping the filibuster intact. Yep. He has held out and in a pretty impressive way, because McConnell's effort here might just be delay, because as long as you don't have an operating agreement, you can't get much done in the Senate, particularly on nominees, because you're not talking about how many members of each party are going to be on the committees. I mean, that's what gets figured out in the power sharing agreement. And without that, it's hard to move forward. Although you can, obviously. I mean, Avril Haines was confirmed yesterday. But It's harder to set up the committees and move forward without that power sharing agreement. So it kind of might be just trying to delay. But good on Chuck Schumer for not saying, okay, yeah, I'll agree to that. I'll keep the filibuster intact. Let
me just also say there's a clock on that, because there is a somewhere in New York State, there is a filing deadline for primaries. And Chuck Schumer is very concerned, is my understanding, of being primaried. And so
is your paperwork filled out on that yet? Or
I'm filling it out for him, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah. Exactly. Emma's working on the paperwork as we speak. But the point being that his incentive to pursue filibuster reform probably significantly diminishes if he feels like his seat is secure. And I don't think there's any question. I mean, I think he thinks that he can win a primary. I don't think there's any reason to doubt that. He has a tremendous amount of money. But it's not a good look for the Senate Majority Leader to lose 30% of the Democratic vote in New York State, or more for that matter, in a primary. And there's certainly some of that happening in New York. And so he has some pressure. And so it's going to be interesting to sort of like, people should keep that in their mind. At one point, Chuck Schumer is going to make a determination as to how serious that primary threat is. And if he determines that it's not that serious, he may start acting in a slightly different manner. All right. Lastly, if you have a moment, like the two big stories is the Congressional Review Act and the firings. There were three major firings yesterday by the Biden administration, one of whom was the General Counsel of the National Labor Relations Board, which apparently is a very big deal because this is a 5-member board. I mean, this is like, there's a lot of people, there's very few people making a determination. Or I should say
the GC, what the GC does, General Counsel, is it really prioritizes cases for the board, and it devotes resources in terms of staff attorneys.
He's the throttle, essentially.
He is the throttle. So it's an important position. And this guy, Peter Robb, is an anti-union guy going way back to. He was involved in the PATCO firing, the firing of the air traffic controllers under Reagan in the 80s. So this is like an OG anti-union guy,
right?
So what was interesting about that is that Biden asked for the resignation of 3 people. It was the head of the CFPB, the head of the parent organization for Voice of America, and this guy Rob from the NLRB, and CFPB and Voice of America people. They just resigned. They said, "Okay, we will."
CFPB is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is they in charge a lot of.
And by the way. If it wasn't for a Supreme Court ruling that said the president can fire the head of the CFPB, that person would have been in place until December 2023. So thank you, Supreme Court, for facilitating consumer protection in America. Anyway, those 2 resigned, but this Peter Robb guy said, "I'm not resigning. I refuse to resign." And now
I hate unions so much that I'm not going to let go of this job.
I need to stay. And he was eligible to stay until November. His term didn't run out until November. So, think back to the Obama administration. If they were confronted with this, they would have taken a meeting. They would have maybe done a poll on how this would play on Fox News. And they would have just really deeply thought about this for a while. Within about 5 minutes of Peter Robb saying, "I'm not quitting," he was fired. And so that is, whether it's learning from the past or whether it's just a different orientation on the part of the Biden administration, there was a definite sense that we're going to do this thing that we promised to do, and we're not going to worry about the optics of it, and we're not going to worry about whether it looks like, overweening, force against conservatives. We don't care. You're out.
All this is flooding back from those early days of the Obama administration, where there was a real concern about czars. that that the Obama administration was appointing. And lastly, any executive action that is taken within a certain window is to the end of the administration is subject to review by Congress, reversal, and then a higher threshold to reinstitute it in the future.
Yeah, and that also is done under a 50 vote environment. So for the Senate, that's not filibusterable. So you can do that with a majority vote. So I assume that somewhere, I mean, this was only a reality after Georgia. So it's a scramble, but I assume somewhere in the administration or in Congress, they're coming up with lists of things to overturn because they need to get on that. The clock is ticking.
Sam's internet might have cut out right there. All right. Well, I think we're probably going to wrap up now. Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate your time. We both do. I'll speak for Frozen Sam there.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We are back. Frozen Sam is alive. Thank you for handling that. We had a little bit of an internet issue there, but I got to say, it is a very odd. I just the juxtaposition between the Obama administration and the Biden administration is a fascinating one, insofar as I believe the expectations and the excitement, frankly, around the Obama election and his presidency was greater than it is for Biden, and the level of scrutiny of his first executive orders and how he was setting up was much less. And yet, Biden, because of the pressure that he is getting from Democrats who want to see him go big, we're starting to see a little bit more. Now, with that said, literally over the past hour, it has been announced that, or reported, I should say, that Mitch McConnell, is holding up the resolution of that organizing the rules for the Senate, basically filibustering it for and holding it hostage for Chuck Schumer to say that he will not use filibuster reform. I mean, and there's an interesting take here, and maybe this is something we'll talk about more tomorrow. When Joe Biden comes out and he talks about unity that much, it becomes a leverage point for Republicans to say, you're not delivering on the unity. And it makes it very easy for them to dictate the success or failure of Biden's agenda, and dictate it so that it's on Joe Biden's shoulders, as opposed to if Joe Biden's primary agenda was, we're going to get, and of course he stated this, but unity obviously carried the day yesterday. We're going to have everybody inoculated. We're going to have everybody taken care of. If you've lost your job, we're going to have everybody taken care of. If you can't pay your rent, if you are food insecure, all of this. And
but making, hard policy promises, that's just not Biden's style, and it never has been. He wants to talk like vaguely about unity and promising to make people's lives better, but not necessarily tied to any specific policy proposal or outcome.
I mean, he's listed them off, but he certainly hasn't put them as the primary sales pitch. I mean, as evidenced at least by his inaugural speech. And it really, the next 30 days, maybe 60 days, but I'm thinking closer to 45, we're going to know whether Joe Biden is going to abandon that notion that he has the ability to unify people who, frankly, the Republican Party is still the Republican Party that they were before Donald Trump, who wouldn't give Merrick Garland a hearing, that they were during Donald Trump, and that they will be tomorrow. And the sooner that Joe Biden accepts that and decides that he's going to move his agenda forward, I think the better off the country's going to be. And frankly, the better off Joe Biden's going to be politically.
The better off the Democratic Party is going to be, not responding to this moment with a robust stimulus, which is needed. And in order to get that, you need to combat the Republicans and also those $2,000 checks that Biden promised. Not doing so would be a political disaster for the Democratic Party. So just for self-preservation, they need to do it.
Well, stay tuned, folks. We'll be covering that tomorrow. And then the days and weeks ahead, we will see you then. And for those of you who are sticking around, the full crew is about to hop on the Zoom call, and I am about to drop off. I will tell you this, a little bit of house cleaning. I will be, I believe, doing, I think, a live stream or maybe a recording on, I'm not sure exactly, on the podcast Bad Faith. And so Bree and Virgil, Texas, we'll be talking to them. I presume some of it will be about, the whole force to vote thing, and just probably generally the perspective that we need to take when dealing with Democrats to get what we want from Democrats. And so tune into that. I think I'll have more information about that probably tomorrow. But if you want to support this program, join themajorityreport.com. When you do, you become a member of the program, you support the free show, and then you get extra content and you get the free show without commercials. Also, check out AM Quickie. You can sign up for that at amquickie.com. Today, I mentioned on Nomi's show, you can find it at youtube.com/The Nomiki Show or twitch.tv, _Nomiki_show. And I can't remember exactly who she had was having on today. Today she's having Harvey K is going to be on. So check that out. And they had a great show yesterday. I think Stephanie Kelton was on, maybe Thomas Frank as well. So check that out. In the meantime, Jamie, what's happening on the Antifada?
Well, this week on the Antifada, it's a very special episode in honor of Martin Luther King Day and of the inauguration of our new president. I was joined by Aaron Thorpe of the Trillbilly Workers Party and A Time of Monsters, as well as Andre Domise of the Drop Squad, to talk about the first volume of Barack Obama's serial killer memoir, A Promised Land. So we talk all about it, what he's trying to do, how he brought Americans together. Is he more like Lena Dunham or Walter White? It's a really good primer, considering that we're going in for round 2 right now of kind of an Obama-like administration. So that's out now, patreon.com/The Antifada. Do I feel bad for making a couple of black leftists talk about Obama on MLK Day? Yes, I do. Are we going to do it again when the second volume comes out? Probably.
Is there going to be a second volume?
Oh, there's going to be at least 2. Because he couldn't say what he wanted to say in one 700-page book.
Damn. Well, yeah. I've actually been thinking about reading that.
I might audiobook it.
You can borrow my copy. It's got a lot of notes in it already.
Does it just
audiobooking sounds pretty good too? Maybe at half speed or 3 times speed rather.
Yeah. It's very smug. He hates us. That's the most clear part. He hates everyone except for like Larry Summers and Timothy Geithner and people like that. He loves them.
They're good guys. I've told that story about what Elliot Spitzer once told me. I'll save it for now. Matt.
What?
Oh, I got a story about Elliot Spitzer's perspective on Obama back in like 2010. When
Dazzled by Ivy Leaguers, basically.
Yeah, basically, it was just sort of, he didn't understand.
Although, I've thought about that. Like, he didn't understand, like, that those guys were idiots, right? But his mom was also an academic. Like, he shouldn't have been completely clueless.
Both of his parents were.
Yeah, I mean, it's
it wasn't so much that he didn't understand that they were stupid as much as they didn't. He assumed that because they were, at a certain, of a certain class or station, that they knew what they were talking about. I mean, that's a problem.
It's a conflation of like intelligence with virtuousness or with, the right way to govern. I
don't know if I think he just felt like these people knew what they were talking about. I mean, and I don't think he just thought that at that moment. I think he thought that, I think he must have thought that throughout his sort of like, even at Harvard Law School. I think this is a longer conversation, but maybe I should read the book first, and then
here's the thing that we figured out
first. Yeah,
like anywhere in the book where you're like, wow, I thought Obama was supposed to be the smart president. Why is he being so dumb about this? No, he's not dumb. He thinks that you're dumb, and he's talking to you like you're a child. So that might be what was going on with that perception of his being impressed by Harvard law people or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't age well. His like whole attitude about governance, for sure.
It wasn't so great at the beginning either. To be honest,
I know. I just mean it gets worse and worse with time.
Yeah.
Like,
Matt Binder, what's happening on Doomed?
Well, hello, Sam. Last night on a special inauguration episode of Doomed, I had Jared Holt, the right-wing researcher and host of another right-wing podcast, on the show, and we basically talked about the QAnon freakout on the inauguration day and where the movement goes from there and what other right-wing movements are going to try to sort of bring the QAnon people into their further right, even more nefarious reactionary worlds.
Well, were you surprised that there was no violence at any of the state capitals around the country? I mean, obviously you have 15,000 troops, maybe more, in Washington, D.C. I don't think there was much room there. And I think some of the capitals were definitely locked down, like around Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. But were you surprised that there weren't any anywhere?
No, I mean, at that point, what were they going to do? Like January 6th was their last stand to take action and actually do something with Trump still in office. At that point, on the 20th, Trump left earlier that day. He already basically conceded that day and said, "I'm out." What were they gonna do? And also I think, a lot of the QAnon people are probably, in the eyes of other more extremist right-wing groups, that they're soft. They sit online and they dream of these things happening, but they don't actually, for the most part, do anything. Even on on January 6th, the QAnon people, they stood out because they were dressed in such flamboyant costumes, a lot of them, and it's easy to point them out with their Q t-shirts, but they were probably the most identifiable. Like, what were they going to do in terms of get away with anything that they would pull off? The true people to worry about were the ones down there on January 6th in militia groups, in white supremacist groups who actually had, gone down there in full blown. Yeah.
The head of Proud Boys apparently was telling people dress in black so they think you're Antifa when you go to the Capitol. Matt Leck, what's happening in the Matt Leckian media universe?
Well, tonight at 8 Eastern, the New Times allows people not on the East Coast to get off work and stuff. 8 Eastern, we're going to have Milton Alamadi on to talk about Uganda and Museveni and Bobby Wine, what's going on there with the basically self-coup. We'll also get Milton's reaction to Biden and the Capitol riots. And we'll also talk about how Bill Gates is buying up all the farmland. So that's tonight at 8 Eastern at Left Reckoning's YouTube channel, patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get the postgame.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. You'll see these guys in the fun half.
in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun hat.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back, boys back, and the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back, boys back, and the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost has what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ Danerky's song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Danerky.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break for people.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
psych. Fuck them. Almost has what? Almost says what? Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black Africans. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy! I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to the fun half. Oh my God. You built a shrine for your girlfriend?
I knew it.
Is that
So,
this letter hack?
Yes, this is the art that was created by the letter hack over this. He sent it to me, a couple days ago, and I thought it was so great that it's
based on your real life room, right?
Right. I don't know how they got that sort of intel.
Well, I mean, you took a photo of it and you sent it to the letter hack for an artistic interpretation, but it's very lifelike.
Right.
It's super. It reminds me of like Hey Arnold. Her shrine.
Right, Helga Pataki, right?
Helga Pataki's.
Right. It's made of gum.
Yeah, I was Helga Pataki for Halloween last year. So, or wait,
wow, that was probably pretty good costume.
I had the unibrow, and then I went with Arnold. It was a big hit.
I could totally see you pulling off the Helga look.
Yeah. So near and dear to my heart, this shrine of yours for many reasons.
Oh my God.
I'm going to change it though, because when the clips are made for YouTube, I think without this sort of context, people will be very confused.
Yeah, they would know if they've been paying attention that you love Nancy Pelosi and you have a shrine to her in your house.
Yeah, why would context clues confuse somebody?
Right. It's exactly the context that, explains everything.
Right.
Wow. Should we play some clips or?
let's get to some clue. How are you guys? First of all, this is the first my first show since Biden was in. Well, it just happened yesterday. So, who else wasn't on the show yesterday? Were you on the show yesterday, Jamie?
I was not. I've been deplatformed from Wednesdays.
Well, there you go. The first ever majority report under the Biden administration with Jamie and Matt Binder.
Yeah, right. I mean, I felt absolutely nothing. I know that's except for like I did enjoy the videos of the Trump kids crying, but I said this on the show yesterday. I wish for just at least maybe a 12-hour period we could have had Trump's Twitter back, just so we could experience the Schadenfreude of him melting down. Like that's really no. I mean, that's the only thing that's gonna like lift my spirits. I'm not, that pumped about a Biden, and I mean, maybe I'm just way too jaded, but like I was getting texts from people like, I'm crying.
Oh, geez.
Man,
no,
I
think
know.
We're on the same page, Emma. I too feel nothing. I too am very sad we did not get to see Trump tweet and melt down through all of this, because that's really the only thing that would have cheered me up and made me feel happy. But I do feel happy to see some of the protests and some of the strikes that have been happening right off the bat. It just shows you that things are a little bit different than they were during the first Obama administration. And hopefully we're going to see a lot of grassroots, working class self-activity, regardless of who's in office, because guess what? These problems are not going away on their own. And Biden's not going to fix them.
I mean, it was at nighttime. We might play this clip, but the inauguration, AOC was like on the strike line with union workers and Teamsters, basically protesting instead of being at the inauguration, which I thought was pretty badass. But I'm sure, Soros paid her to do it or whatever. She sold out to whichever, big money donor she sold out to, apparently.
Well, maybe we should get to that.
Sure.
Good segue, because people on the right and certain parts of the left, cough, cough, have often criticized AOC, saying that she doesn't do anything. She's only on Twitter. She only appeals to the PMC. She's a sellout. She doesn't care about blue collar workers, whatever. So, naturally, yesterday she was watching the inauguration next to Nancy Pelosi, tweeting about how all the problems are going to be solved and it's time to turn the page. Psych.
Yeah, sharing a margarita, that was probably $400 a cup. That's the perception of her that's painted online, except this is the reality, as you're saying.
Yeah, so yesterday, actually, she was at the Hunts Point Market in the Bronx, supporting striking workers there, yelling into a megaphone, and she brought them some coffee and burgers, and I'm told by people who were there that she really helped raise their spirits.
Demanding better working conditions, demanding an end to poverty, demanding an end to war, demanding a better material and just outcomes for all people in the United States.
This right here is why I do what I do.
That's
right here. This is why I do what I do. This
is
why I'm out here. Right
here. And I just want you to know, too, that you're not just standing up for that baby. You're standing up for babies all across this country. Because just like there are workers here, there are workers, food workers in every pocket of the United States who deserve more than $1. Who deserve more than a raise. They deserve health care. They deserve justice. They deserve good working worker rights. And that's what we're here to fight for today. So I want you all to know that when you're standing on this line, you're not just asking for $1. You are asking for transformational change for your lives and for the lives of every food worker across this country, for kids of food workers across this country. Because there's a lot of things upside down right now in our economy. And one of those things that's upside down, sorry, it's cold out. One of those things that's upside down is the fact that a person who is helping get the food to your table cannot feed their own kids. That's upside down. The fact that someone who can help you get care or help deliver your groceries can't even get health care themselves or can't even get access to those things themselves.
That ain't right.
That's not right. That's upside down. And so what we're doing here today is taking the upside down and making it right side up.
Yes.
And the only way we do that, we don't do that a politician like myself. We do that with people and collective struggle together. So I come here to just be here shoulder to shoulder with each of you all, and for all of our workers here, for all of our other unions that are operating in solidarity coming out here, thank you for showing up. And for anybody who might be watching or hearing, who isn't part of you, who's just in the neighborhood, pull up! Pull up!
Interesting.
By the way,
that you guys
it's a little
cut it
safer.
off.
No, I just wanted to say it's a little safer for her than other people, because I know that freaked me out a little seeing so many people. But I mean, I don't know if she's gotten her second shot yet, but she's gotten her first vaccine shot already. So
Yeah, she's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
Like, look, this is a perfect example of the theory of change that AOC understands, right? Because she knows, like she just said, it's not just about politicians. It's not just about parliamentary maneuvers. If we want to really be fighting for the working class, we're going to need to be building class power at the point of production and at the point of distribution, because this Hunts Point market is a major hub for food distribution for produce in the New York region. And she understands that, and she needs to be there supporting them, because that is the kind of action, the kind of practical self-activity of the working class that's going to give her a base of power to do the things that she wants to do in Congress.
I mean, and there are like 4 Congress, it's grown, but people who stand on the picket line with workers and I mean, I can think of.
Let's see Josh Hawley do that.
Sorry?
Let's see Josh Hawley do that.
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, they're more interested in their viral moments in Congress than they are actually standing with people. And so, I mean, I just think it's a super important clip, and all the points Jamie makes are so key, because so much of politics is performative for politicians, for a great majority of them. It's all about them pretending or showing the theater of politics. That's really what it is. But for a select few, I mean, a handful of people in our government, it's real. And she's one of them.
Yeah, and I think like her example can make it so, we have all these examples of photo ops with, politicians and executives and stuff. This is where a politician should be seen. I think we should, as just that image of a politician amidst a strike, like, there you go. That's actually doing work.
You guys cut it off right before she said, and don't forget Nancy Pelosi for life.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right. Well, no, I think that's just
she started
your
a big
internal
mama
dialogue.
bear, a big
Matt,
mama
that's just
bear
what
chant.
you said. Sorry, Brendan.
I think she also said something like, what? Never Medicare for all. Don't forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want anybody to have health care. I'm the one standing in the way.
Right. Well, just think about it, guys. The time she spent standing on that picket line is time she could have spent on the House floor voting for Medicare for all.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's just insane. Like the discourse around her is so online, and that is real. That's real.
Yeah.
What was happening on the internet is just garbage and theater and empty. What she did there, standing
celebrity
with workers,
culture.
that's real. Right, exactly. Why don't you watch the fucking Real Housewives of Atlanta and talk about politics? Like, why doesn't Jimmy and his code do that? Like, that is way more of what they're interested in than actual politics.
Well,
sorry for getting a little yeah.
No worries. When someone spends all their time online and that's the only place that they see her because they're not out on the picket line, it's easy to think, oh, all she does is online stuff, because you don't see the rest of what she does, because that's where you live. You live on the internet. But there is another clip of this strike. Should we play that as well? It's number 11, showing really the kinds of the kind of magic, the kind of powerful magic that can happen when workers stand together with their union brothers and sisters.
So as of 7:35 p.m. tonight, CSX trying to deliver 21 freight cars of merchandise into the Hunts Point market. Our guys, our captains, our union guys came there, asked them to support our union. The locomotive engineer came out, saw them, said, we're Teamsters too, turned the freight car right back around, headed back to Ohio. Another victory, another day longer, another day stronger. We're going to get this contract come hell or high water. Thank you.
Hell yeah. That is so beautiful to see. Teamsters helping Teamsters, workers helping workers. And I think it's pretty easy to make the connection here. Food distribution is a major thing that our country runs on. The workers, the essential workers who work in food distribution, actually have quite a bit of power to shut down the flow of commerce. And when they use that power, they win. It's as simple as that, right? And they're not even asking for that much. The workers at the Hunts Point Market are asking for a $1 an hour raise and better support for their health care. The bosses have countered with a 30-cent raise, and that's not enough. And this is what's causing this long-standing conflict, which is, this is some real Gilded Age shit, right? Like, so much for essential workers. Like, oh, we love our essential workers. We thank our essential workers. But when they want a raise of $1 an hour, that's too much.
Yeah, it's remarkable, that terminology, because I remember when we first started hearing that, like basically almost a year ago. It's like, are we actually going to do right by these people or are we just going to create a new term of people that we can basically force into work during a pandemic at the same basic, compensation they had before, which was too little? And the answer was, of course, we're not going to actually do right by these people. And I mean, it's a beautiful thing that, I mean, you see why people are afraid of unions in general, that we're Teamsters too, we're going to turn that around. I mean, imagine if organized labor was even bigger. I mean, people talk about general strikes. That's what you need. It's
a glimmer of hope. It's a glimmer of hope about like the resurgence of unions and organized labor in this country, which has been just decimated and had been for decades. But I do see, I see those glimmers, and I see that organizing starting to happen, on a scale that's being amplified too. And having a high profile politician like Ocasio-Cortez legitimize that and stand with them and use her publicity to amplify it. That's key. That's key to making these like unions less of a dirty word in the eyes of like boomers who were obsessed with Reagan or whatever,
That's right. And let me put my abolitionist hat on for a second, okay? Because there have been a few arrests at this strike and at this picket already. And by all accounts, the cops are being jerks. And I think that speaks to the necessity of connecting up the labor movement with the abolitionist movement and with the movement to defund the NYPD. Because one of the primary purposes that the police in this country were founded to serve was breaking up strikes and keeping workers from organizing. And I think people are starting to remember that. And the more connections that we make between the workers movement, between the labor movement, between the movement to defund the NYPD and abolish the police, and, the Black Lives Matter movement in the streets, because a lot of these workers are also people of color, that's really what we need to see if we want to see change in the world.
All right.
Yeah, here's this arrest here.
If you remain in the roadway and refuse to utilize the sidewalk, you will be placed under arrest and charged with disorderly conduct.
This is the New York City Police Department. You are unlawfully in the roadway and obstructing vehicular traffic. You are ordered to leave the roadway and utilize the available sidewalk. If you do so voluntarily, no charges will be placed against you. If you remain in the roadway and refuse to utilize the sidewalk,
meaning continue to strike,
you will be placed under arrest and charged with disorderly conduct. This is the New York City Police Department. You are unlawful.
Damn.
Yeah, and that was posted from the Teamsters social media account. So again, it would seem that they're starting to make connections between the purpose the police serve, their efforts to strike, and, the police's efforts to stop them. And that is a good development.
That audio recording playing, though, is so like dystopian, isn't it?
Because
New York Police Department.
That's pure reaction to video cameras, right? Like they want their propaganda message to be all over any video that comes out of those sorts of thing. And this is just people blocking the road. It's not them actually like striking and trying to withhold and actually disrupt work to actually get what they're owed.
All right. Right. And, I do think it'll be interesting to see, especially a lot of people got into politics in some shape or form over the past 4 years. And, a lot of it was just basically so based upon just being anti-Trump that I do worry about, with especially some of the rhetoric you saw online yesterday with people just, treating Biden like a celebrity in the same way that, MAGA treated Trump. I do worry that with so many new people who feel that way without really knowing what they're talking about, it could sort of hurt some of these efforts if you have a large group of people suddenly fighting against on the ground organized, workers groups and labor. It's just something I've been thinking about, and I hope it doesn't happen that way, but who knows? I mean, we saw it a bit under the Obama administration. A lot of people loved Obama, and anyone who criticized Obama, even if they were on the left and probably voted for him, they felt the wrath of those people who weren't, showing undying gratitude and love for Obama just existing.
No, it's truly diseased, but I gotta say, if we're talking about the kind of people who are just going to go back to brunch because Biden's president, I question how helpful they were to begin with in the struggle for class power,
Right. The question is how many of them will just go back to brunch and how many of them will continue to be just completely uninformed, but have maintain their place in the discourse. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they're definitely out there, but I think they are a vocal minority of people. And you know what? Some of them are not of the working class. And, it's great if they decide to align themselves on the right side of history, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
That's the thing. You brought that up. That's the thing. I didn't share any of those Bernie Sanders memes, and I know people are sharing them because they think those Bernie Sanders memes are cute, and people are making them to be fun, and they like Bernie. But there's also a large contingent of people who are sharing it in the most classist of way, thinking he was dressed like a slob for just dressing like a normal everyday human being who doesn't dress all fancy for every single little event.
You got a good coat. You only need one good coat.
Yeah.
What's amazing about that is I love it because they especially the classist liberals aren't aware when they expose themselves like that. They think that is they think they're good in terms of any type of equality, or they can't imagine they're actually classist. But Bernie shows up with a coat, the same coat that he's worn to other occasions, and in mittens, and not looking super, intrigued, and maybe with something he's going to mail later. I think that is, first of all, I just love it. I am a big fan of what happened and that imagery. And I think, look, we don't want to be too celeb focused in this regard, but the messages there, like the fan made knit gloves, the coat, the posture. I think he totally nailed the first meme of the Biden administration.
He's wearing the same coat from the other meme, which is my favorite part about it.
I know. And I love how it's all
asking you.
But again, I said this in a tweet yesterday, his distaste for the stupid, smug pageantry of the inauguration, or not even distaste, but disregard and be I got other stuff to do.
Or even the correct posture toward it for people to recognize. That's why we appreciate it, is because it's people identify with that and not the clapping for the fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Did you see, speaking of the fireworks, did you see that tweet where it's our enemies are cowering in fear of this firework display? And
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Because, who they're talking about, too. They're probably talking about, I don't know, China. And, I'm sure China can pull off a firework display, let me tell you.
No, Maduro is just pissing his pants right now. Oh, no, they've got fireworks.
If World War III is about fireworks, we are sunk, guys. It's over.
Yeah.
Let's start learning Mandarin.
Oh, right. Fine. Come save us. Honestly, couldn't be worse than what we have now.
Hey, at least we'll have good fireworks displays.
Mm-hmm. No, they'll be epic.
As we're next to Uyghurs making solar panels.
All right, what clip do you guys want to get to next? Let's go to one of these Fox News clips because they were fun. What I saw.
Sure.
Oh, actually, you know what? Did you actually this one? While we're on this topic, let's get to this. Actually, want to pull up that Jim Clyburn clip, Brendan?
Oh man, you're gonna give me a heart attack.
Yeah. So So Jim Clyburn was talking to, I'm not even sure who he was talking to yesterday, but he was on a Zoom call with reporters, it seems. And he was talking about an encounter he had at the inauguration for Joe Biden with former President George W. Bush. And let Clyburn, or Representative Clyburn, break down how this conversation with the former Republican president went.
George Bush said to me today, he said, you're the savior. Because if you had not nominated Joe Biden, we would not be having this transfer of power today. He said to me, Joe Biden was the only one who could have defeated the incumbent president.
Folks, we all know that George W. Bush is really plugged into this stuff. I mean, he also said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and look what ended up happening. Iraq had wait, no, I'm sorry. George Bush, this is who the Democratic leadership is heralding as someone who gave them words of wisdom and thanks, the savior of the country. Because he helped Joe Biden win in South Carolina. Because, really what he's saying is, thank you for not letting Bernie Sanders become president. I mean, that's clearly what the one of the undertones here are. It's like, what is your guys?
That's where Clyburn and Bush united. Isn't that an amazing example of beautiful bipartisanship, Matt? I mean, that's what this country was built on, stopping actual help and a change of the system that would be directed towards benefiting the regular population. Wow. I mean, like, Clyburn says that so proudly. Well, I know. I mean, it's like he's a clear war criminal. Like, he left office with a 22% approval rating. Why is he immediately rehabilitated just because we haven't seen his face that often?
It's the deep state, folks.
The libs love George W. Bush now. He's best BFFs with Michelle Obama. I'm just so happy I saw some tweets yesterday. Oh, I'm so happy to see Bush. I never thought I'd say that, though. Give me a break. In my estimation, quite honestly, now that the Trump administration is completely done, yes, in some aspects, the Trump administration was much worse than the Bush administration. But overall, harm done to the world. Hands down, Bush administration, by body count, by just putting this country in situations that, a lot of what Trump did is reversible. There is no executive order that Obama was able to come into, and not that he wanted to, that he was able to bring back, go back in time from a lot of things the Bush administration did. We are still in 2 wars because the Bush administration got us into. Like, are you kidding me?
I mean, I actually think it's a tougher conversation, even though I tend to agree with you, Matt, just because one, Bush had double the time to do his horrific, make his imprint on the world.
Got about double the bodies, though.
And double the bodies, but look, the COVID deaths, that's a real thing. And can you imagine how Trump would have responded to 9/11? I don't know if he could have done anything worse, but we know he would have responded, I think, in a fairly similar fashion.
Right. Yeah, sure. But I mean, that doesn't mean that one administration is, the Bush administration did less harm.
Potentiality versus actual work. But I want to flag just this tweet here, just so we can see, like, George W. Bush has been busy socially. Political Playbook spotted George W. Bush and Tucker Carlson having dinner at the private home of a neighbor on the exclusive Gasparilla Island, Florida, where they both have homes. Now, just a note on Gasparilla Island. The Wall Street Journal selected Gasparilla Island as one of the 10 best places for second homes.
I mean, there's a specific list for second homes, particularly. Like, wouldn't that just be like, I would assume you would just have a second home at the second place on the best homes list. I didn't realize the second homes list existed. Like, that was a completely different.
It's a different vibe at the second home.
Right. I would like to imagine, though, that George Bush was actually, worried that Pete Buttigieg was pull off the win, and George Bush, just for some reason, deep down hates Pete Buttigieg. That's what I'm going to pretend here. I'm going to pretend.
Well, who doesn't? But I think Jim Clyburn here is trying
that rat face.
He's trying to save a little bit of face here because he knows that there's a lot of young people who are like, hey, we could have had a bad bitch. Instead, we have this neoliberal, racist, rapist, warmongering piece of shit. And Clyburn is just doubling down and saying, no, really, Bernie would have lost. Biden is the only one who could have won. And it's fine that I did that. And it's good that I did that. And the fact that he's even worried about it makes me feel a little bit better.
And that he has to go to George W. Bush for credibility on it.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Like you've chosen your side, man. You've been bought off a long time ago. I'm sure he did good stuff at the beginning of his career, but look, in this day and age, to be trumpeting your friendship with George W. Bush as a good thing just shows how woefully out of touch you are.
Well, it's
Here's
also
the thing, though.
just.
Do you think?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Emma.
No, it's just a really quick point. It's part and parcel with the Biden campaign strategy too, which was like this elevation of Republicans and their approval as some sort of trophy to uphold. I mean, Clyburn is just repeating the same strategy that was so infuriating during the election, which happened a few months ago.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think that people like Clyburn actually believe this, or do they just say it? When this referring to the idea that Joe Biden is the only one who could have defeated Trump, or do they just say it so the Democratic base believes it? Because I mean, it couldn't be clearer to anyone who just looks at the facts here. And that is that there was an overwhelming anti-Trump vote, which literally anyone and this is me saying this as a Bernie Sanders supporter, literally anyone, even people I don't like, other people I didn't like Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, literally anyone could have been in that position and beat Donald Trump because everyone voted against Trump, not for Joe Biden.
Biden didn't even campaign. I mean, like, that was the joke. It was such an anti-Trump vote that, yeah, it could, like, but he knows. But the point is just that, they have to build up the strength of the presidency. And this was the candidate that he did exert his influence on the primary to great effect. Joe Biden won the primary. But there's also just this internalized fear in the Democratic Party establishment in Washington too, that like no one to the left of center could ever actually win the presidency. And so they've convinced themselves of that too. So it's probably both.
I just also want to dispel the idea, just in case though, that anyone watching this thinks this. Donald Trump won more votes than any Republican presidential candidate in history. Republicans voted for Donald Trump because I know the belief is that Biden, with his moderate views, was able to pull in people from all across the aisle. Bullshit. It didn't happen. He pulled in a large amount of Democratic voters who maybe sat 2016 out, or maybe even never voted before, but would have voted Democratic in those previous elections. Republicans came out of the woodwork for Donald Trump in the same way Democrats came out for Biden. Biden's views did not win over any sort of significant Republican voting coalition whatsoever. I want to bury that in all of your skulls if you're watching this and think for a second that the Lincoln Project helped in any way and they only would have voted for Joe Biden. It did not happen. It did not happen. It did not happen. Republicans lined up more so than for Donald Trump than any other Republican president in the past, period.
He is the most Republican president in history. He is the most, to his core, the id of the Republican Party. He personified every emotion that dominates the Republican Party. And trying to divorce him from that, which is what Biden actively tries to do, which is political suicide and idiocy, it's just harmful to history and to what we're going to learn from this awful era.
Yep. Well, here's why I think he knows, okay? The two primary motivators for people to vote in the midterms were hatred of Donald Trump and concern over health care, right? So the first thing would be activated by any Democratic candidate. However, the second I don't know, might have been activated a little bit more by the guy whose primary platform policy plank is giving everybody health care for free. I don't know. That's just a guesstimate. There's also the polls that said that Bernie would have done just as well as Biden against Donald Trump. No, Clyburn knows he's trying to discipline the left at the same time that he's trying to maintain his own stature and his own status by gaslighting everybody on the left and all of the young people who hate him now by saying, no, this is really the thing. And then he wants us to question, oh, does he really believe that? Does he really not? Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because that's the outcome that he's producing.
Yeah, I mean, the obstacle for Bernie, if he would have won the primary, wouldn't have been the voters. It would have been friends like Clyburn and George W. Bush and what they were doing behind the scenes to hamstring Bernie. Like that, to the extent that he was a riskier candidate, that's the calculus you make.
Yeah, I mean, Clyburn was a big player in this because of his influence and his stature in the South and Southern Black churches. Those as institutions were incredibly important. That's why his sway was, the most important endorsement of the primary, most likely after AOC, even though, that reinvigorated Bernie's campaign, but didn't put him over the top at that point. So, any lukewarm or backstabbing or whispers behind Bernie's back by people like Clyburn would have had a significant effect if they weren't full throated in their support for him. But we'll never know, obviously. But I mean, that's most likely what would have happened.
Yep.
Right. You guys want to go to one of these Fox News clips, and then I guess we'll take a call or two.
Sounds good.
I've got a setup for Tucker.
All right, let's do it. Go ahead, Jamie. Take it away.
All right. Well, today in Projection Land, our friend Tucker Carlson is still on one, talking about how Antifa and Black Lives Matter are just like the KKK during Reconstruction because they're enforcing. They're the muscle for the Democratic Party. Never mind the fact that the Republicans are now the party of white supremacy, or should I say greater white supremacy than the Democrats, and have street gangs like the Proud Boys operating on their side. But let's take a look at what he has to say.
War on terror, they got to cut it out, Tucker. They got to cut it out. This is dangerous.
I agree. I'm worried, and it is about power, or else they would make the faith-based case against racism, which is the one that you and I grew up with in this country. They said, don't judge other people because what matters is inside, right? But I wonder, you mentioned the BLM movement that really kind of took over a lot of the country, funded by our most powerful corporations over the summer. That is a political movement. Put it in context for us. What would you compare that to?
Well, I compare Black Lives Matters to the KKK. I really do, and some people don't understand it. But if you go back to the 1860s, after the Emancipation Proclamation, the KKK was started, and it was the enforcement arm of the Democratic Party. And what's the enforcement arm of the Democratic Party right now? Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They will come to your home and violate your home, try to intimidate the people in your home if they disagree with you politically. Black Lives Matter, a Marxist organization. Marxism is hostile towards religion. That's why I'm glad you went there today. These are atheist values being expressed from our leaders, demonizing individual citizens here in America, branding them as white supremacists because they decided, because we disagree with their opinion about something. This is lunacy, and it's dangerous.
What I love about your analysis, and I think the reason you're able to see this so clearly,
I can't even I can't even hold myself back. What, Matt?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just saying, it's unbelievable. What I love about your analysis, it's too much. I can't handle him doing that.
So of course then, what's hilarious to me is that he uses the Marxist tie to Black Lives Matter and says that's why they're the KKK. Dude, in the civil rights movement, the entire governmental apparatus, the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, all of the most corrupt and malignant right-wing forces in our government were trying to tie communism to the civil rights movement. And that was their effort to discredit them. I mean, it's just the entire perception of history is so thwarted, and it's like this deeply offensive tactic constantly used by Fox News to put a black face out there to say completely insane counter-historical things in order to further their right-wing agenda. Like, it blows my mind.
Well,
none
to
of
be
these
fair,
guys, none of these guys know what Marxism is. They have no clue.
No, they don't. But to be fair, the communist movement in the United States was tied to the movement for Black liberation because they understood that those two things are connected, and it set off a whole long tradition of anti-communism and anti-Blackness going hand in hand. The thing that they are wrong about is these movements are not rigidly atheistic. I mean, we've got leaders like Cornel West right now talking about the connections between capitalism and white supremacy. Is he an atheist? I don't think so.
I mean, that's the thing, though. They can't actually. They don't have a rebuttal to the actual the point of Marxist analysis, which is mainly on class. The idea that they always pull out of their ass, like religion. Oh, cultural Marxism. That's what I'm thinking of. What the fuck is cultural Marxism? That's something they pulled out of their ass. There's no such. That's not a thing. That's a thing they created to basically wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And we want to keep. What was that, Matt?
Well, I was going to say that's I don't know if this is how Whitlock is using it, but that's an anti-Semitic dog whistle. Like when you go to the thing about Marxism is that it's a threat to Christianity. Yeah, I think once I said like Whitlock is an idiot, like black Republican who got his bones, like saying Kaepernick was like, I don't know what he was doing before that, but that's where he crossed my radar, like just concern trolling Kaepernick. Right. So that's who this guy is.
Right. I mean, I don't even think you necessarily even have to say the words exactly cultural Marxism. Espousing, pulling Marxism out of a hat here to deflect on anything. It seems to be that dog whistle as well, to be honest with you.
Well, let's stay with them for a second, okay? Because it's been a minute since we've checked in on the anti-capitalist left. And, it's very possible that they are currently acting as the paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party, demonstrating in favor of Joe Biden and against anyone who opposes Joe Biden. Do we have that clip from Portland? All right. And then we've got some more videos in that thread of them decorating and bringing cookies to the local Democratic Party headquarters. Oh, no, wait. You got that clip? Anyway, they're smashing it up. Spoiler alert. They are breaking the windows with baseball bats. So what's going and I should say this is a coalition of, Antifa, anarchists, Black liberationists. So what's going on here? Has the paramilitary wing of the Democratic Party simply gone rogue? Is this secretly a demo in support of Joe Biden? Maybe we have like a Boo Earns situation. What's going on?
I don't know. I've already gotten lost. I'm trying in my mind to further dissect Whitlock's argument and be like, okay, so putting all these pieces together to deconstruct it, and it's so convoluted and batshit insane that I can't even do that.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what you get when you go for this sort of analysis from a guy who's been fired from every sports commentator gig it seems he's had.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I love, my favorite thing is that they connect, they say the Democratic Party associated with the Ku Klux Klan back in the 1800s, but they totally skip over the fact that LBJ signed the Voting Rights Act, the whole change in the party. They just take out the entire 20th century. No, that didn't happen.
Goldwater, for instance. Yeah. That's what to support it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. They skip over that point in history in order to dupe their stupid viewers into being able to cozy up to their racism. Yeah. And if you don't see any complete parallel and linear trajectory throughout history between BLM and the civil rights movement in the 1960s, you're an absolute idiot. You don't even deserve to have a platform on the news. There's just no way to sever those things.
Well, I mean, he is an idiot. I mean, look what he's doing. He started this makes a lot of sense, actually. Beginning in last summer, Jason Whitlock joined Outkick, Clay Travis's sports outfit. So
the biggest hack in sports is Clay Travis. The biggest embarrassment in sports media is Clay Travis. So that's not even a shock to me.
Right.
So
I mean, a lot of it comes from, and some of them do it purposefully, but others are honestly just that dumb. The idea that there's just black and white in terms of there's people who like Democrats and people who like Republicans. To these guys, there's no like subgroups within like everyone's just on the left or the right. There's no spectrum here. So to them, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Black Bloc, anarchists, communists, socialists, Democrats, moderate Dems, center left Dem, all the same to them. They're all in one big happy family. And then same on the right for them. They don't view things any more than just that. It's just that simple to them. It's just a simple way of looking at things and a way to completely not get what goes on and how the world works.
Well, they need something to be reactionary against, right? And in the absence of a strong left-wing anti-capitalist movement that actually poses a threat to capital, they're going to be fighting against these paper tigers. And this is a circle that I've been trying to square with my own studies on fascism, because one of the historical characteristics of fascism and one of the reasons that it first arose was as a reaction to a credible threat from the anti-capitalist left. And we do not have that right now. And yet we are seeing something akin to fascism rising in this country. And I read an article by Alberto Toscano where he goes over some of the correspondence between Angela Davis and George Jackson when George Jackson was in prison. These are, for those who don't know, leftists, Black liberation activists, Black Panthers, in the 1960s. And they came up with the idea of the preemptive counter-revolution, right? So even though there might not be a credible threat currently from the anti-capitalist, anti-racist left, reactionaries are still concerned that it's going to happen because they know that they are doing oppression on people. Right. So if in the absence of, a real movement with power to react against, they're seeing it everywhere. They're seeing it in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And that made a whole lot of sense to my understanding of the way fascism is operating right now. Also,
I think that's 100% right. That's how I view it too. I think it is like a huge overreaction based on they're not materially grounded to the reality of it. They're just seeing Antifa people on Twitter and some protests, and they're saying, oh my God, this is actually happening, because it should happen. But even though it's not actually that close to happening.
Yeah, word. And this is an obvious point, but just to put a button on it, the Democratic Party is racist as well, and we're going to need people to the left of Joe Biden if we actually want to create change. So the fact that we've got leftists protesting right off the bat saying neither Trump nor Biden, we need abolition, we need revolution, we need a working class uprising if we actually want to fix the problems, if we want to end white supremacist capitalism in this country from day one of the Biden administration. That can only be a good thing going forward. And that's very, very different than what we saw day one of the Obama administration.
All right. Do you guys want to get to this, speaking while we're on this topic, you guys want to get to that Karl Rove clip?
Oh yeah, let's do MC Rove.
All right. So Karl Rove was on Fox News, and his feelings were very hurt over a specific portion of Joe Biden's inaugural address. Now, I'm not sure if you guys will know exactly what that is. Try to guess. Think about it. I'll give you a second.
Well,
and now here's the actual answer.
The spoiler is that it says a lot more about Karl Rove than it says about anything Joe Biden said.
What number is this?
Oh, way to Where is it? I know I saw it on the list. Where is it? Is it not on the list anymore? I thought we had it on the list. My bad. All right. Well, I don't have it on me.
I just sent it. I just found it on Twitter.
I could have sworn it was on the list.
I just sent it, guys.
Whether it's COVID or the economy or racism, why are they talking everything down, do you think?
Well, part of it is to lower expectations. The economy is really bad. COVID's all screwed up. It's all bungled. It's going to be really hard to get these things fixed. And then as people get their vaccinations and the economy begins to rebound as a result of it being opened up, they can say, look at us, didn't we do a great job? The racism thing to me is, I was offended in the speech. I mean, I thought it was a good speech. It wasn't a great speech, but it was a good speech, and it was the right speech for the moment. But there was a point in there where he said we're divided as a country between the people who believe in the American ideal and racism, nativism, and fear. No. We're divided as a country politically over questions of policy and direction and respect. But we're as united as a country against racism and nativism. There are people in this country who are racist. There are people who are nativists.
I mean,
incredibly rich for him to talk about being offended by bringing up racism in the speech, just bringing it up. It's not like Biden uses any offensive rhetoric at all. I'm a little offended by potentially up to 1 million dead in an illegal war, but that's just me and lying about it to get there. You know what I'm offended by? I'm offended that he hasn't been charged and tried for war crimes. That's what I'm offended by.
I'm offended by Karl Rove's dancing.
Oh no!
Oh,
what?
He's got so much to prove. Man, tell me you never saw this man move. Doing the dance, the Karl Rove dance, doing the dance. Treasure trove, tell me what is your name? MC Rove. You can see him later hanging in the cove. Tell me what is your name? MC Rove.
No.
Doing it right.
Oh my God! I had not seen this.
What's your name? MC Rove. Give it up for
No.
MC.
Man.
Girl.
Oof.
That's the first thing you see when you enter the gates of hell.
And, while I was listening to that clip, I saw this going on. I can't find the clip of it, but apparently Rand Paul on Fox News yesterday had a similar little quibble with Joe Biden's speech. Apparently, Rand Paul said, if you read his speech and listen to it carefully, much of it is thinly veiled innuendo, calling us white supremacists, calling us racists, calling us every name in the book, calling us people who don't tell the truth.
Secret message received, Rand.
Right. I mean, listen, if you hear that and you say, hey, he's talking about me, then, well, you've just answered the question. I mean, really, there's no doubt about it. If you know he was talking about you, I mean, it seems pretty simple. If that wasn't about you, you wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, usually insecure people, if you're insecure about a very specific thing, they'll project and they'll get very insecure about what you're bringing up, assume it's about them. Hey, Rand, Biden didn't mention your racism by name. Says a little bit about you that you're responding as if it's about you.
And I just want to say on Karl Rove's suggestion that everyone is united against racism, one of the suggestions, not just by Republicans, but by the entire intellectual dark web and all those trolls, is that anti-racism is actually going too far right now. That's what they will all say when they're less guarded. Like, racism is a problem, but actually anti-racism, it's gone all the way around to get an anti-racism is the new racism. I mean, that's the way that they'll say they'll mean it.
There's that preemptive counter-revolution, right? Like, it's all over Obama's book as well. Like, all he had to say was, oh yeah, that cop acted stupidly when he arrested a black professor for trying to break into his own house. And people reacted as if he were trying to kill all the white people. So, like, the reaction to, on the one hand, the Republican reaction treats it as if it were a fully formed anti-capitalist movement for Black liberation. And their response to that isn't to defend the Democrats on the grounds that they are for liberation for all people, right? No, it's to rightly say, like, both of these sides are bullshit.
All right. You're so racist, you probably think this speech is about you.
Yeah, but if you want to like
Carly
compromise
Simon
with these
reference.
people, you want to be friends with these people, I don't know what to tell you.
Let's go to the phones. What's your name? Where are you calling from? First caller of the day.
Hello?
Hello. What's your name? Where are you calling from? You're on the air.
Yes. You didn't call on the area code. This is Dave from Scranton.
Oh, hey Dave, how you doing? My bad, I did not call the my bad. I did not call.
Yeah.
Birthplace of
I got
Joseph
confused
Robinette
there for a
Biden.
second. But so yeah, Sam was talking about comedy going out of date. Yet a comic/musician whose material unfortunately didn't go out of date, and it's sad. Tom Lehrer, whether it comes to healthcare, pollution, hate between different races, religion, nuclear proliferation, hell, even new math, which thanks to Trump and COVID, I now have to deal with as a parent who now needs a degree in elementary education. But, another point is, so we now know that Force the Vote was a scam, a grift, to build a third party to get YouTube views. They knew it wasn't, they knew it was going to fail and knew how it wouldn't get Med for All or get Medicare for All more support in Congress. Now they're attacking Biden, or some dum-dums are attacking Biden on Trump's rollout of, the vaccine over a week ago. Okay, we now know that he had no plan. Why are so many on the left don't seem to be realistic? Is it just pandering? Is it just holier than thou nonsense? But
First of all, I have to say that Force the Vote clearly was not a grift. It succeeded in getting Jimmy Dore on Tucker Carlson's show so he could free Assange.
Right. It's funny, Corey Robin on Bad Faith was talking about LBJ means testing. LBJ's war on poverty cut poverty in half in 8 years. Now, I know it's not perfect, but, it's still cut, poverty was like around 20%, then it went down to like 11% in 8 years. At some point, being contrarian just gets in the way. I want to destroy the Republicans and the right wing, okay? That's the most important thing possible. That's it. I know that we have all three branches of government, but they're still there.
Right,
we
but
only have slim
can I
margins
just-
in Congress.
Can I just add one thing? Like, in order to defeat those people, we also need to destroy people like Clyburn, who are doing everything they can to maintain that party. So,
Yeah, just because someone's a Democrat doesn't mean that they're on our side.
Yeah.
I understand that, but Republicans and right wingers are worse. I mean, I work from home and I listen to my local talk radio. And, you have tons of people, just repeating the right-wing narrative from Rush, from Tucker. They're against $15 minimum wage. They actually think Biden's for open borders, that he's a commie, that he's for Medicare for all. I mean,
yeah, they're nuts.
We got to, yeah, exactly. But I think that's why we need to, bring them down first, and then,
I mean, they're down, though.
But,
Okay. I don't know what your specific politics are. They sound like they're different from mine, but we're in a three-way war against the rising fascist threat from the right, as well as the sort of centrist neoliberal consensus that is, qualitatively different, but feeds into the rise of fascism on the right. And we need to defeat both of those things. Criticizing Democrats for doing things like means testing, which is a bad policy, that is not.
I'm not saying it's not, but
that is not necessarily counterproductive to the goals of worker power. And Force the Vote, I got to say, at the beginning, before it took on a life of its own and became this emotional, grifty thing, it was just a tactical debate between mostly social Democrats. And as a tactic, it wasn't the worst idea. When I thought that was all that they could do, and there wasn't anything else that they could do to make Medicare for all more likely, I was like, yeah, do it. People need to know which Democrats are on their side and which Democrats are against Medicare for all. That in and of itself, not necessarily bad. An oppositional approach to the establishment Democrats, which is almost all of them, also not necessarily bad. But you have to be smart about it. And you have to connect up those strategies to a grassroots movement that's building power on the ground. At the point of production and distribution, places like the Hunts Point Market, like the clips of AOC that we just played. And that's when you're going to see some movement in that area.
Right, and I agree. I'm not a commie. I mean, but social democrat. I guess that's the best label. But like I said, I think we just need to be realistic. I mean, AOC, she's not a commie, but she's fighting for workers' rights. The majority of Americans don't want the USA to be, a communist country. We just need. I think we just need to
not
be
with
realistic
that attitude.
when it comes to. All right. I just want to say again, you guys do a great show. I mean, I don't always agree with you, Jamie, but you do make great points. And
thank you.
I want to thank all
Appreciate
you
it.
guys for your time.
Thank you.
I try to be the friendliest communist representative that I can possibly be.
A commie.
Right. All right. Have a good
call,
day,
Dave.
guys.
Thanks, you too, man.
Bye-bye.
How is my sound now, guys?
It's a
you
little quiet.
Low.
Is it still low?
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm not sure.
All right. You know what happened? When the caller came on, Zoom had the automatic adjusting microphone volume, and they coming through one source.
Right, because he was way hotter. Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to the phones now. I'll try to be a little bit louder on my end too. 308. What's your name? Where are you calling from? 308.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the area code. It's Kowalski.
Hey, Kowalski, what would you like to talk about today?
This might be slightly in the weeds, but I actually had a decent conversation with somebody who typically is just, big Trump supporter, but actually we talked a little bit on policy, and I wanted to get you guys' take on something. So they said one of the big reasons they wouldn't vote for Biden was because his tax policy calls for getting rid of the step-up basis. Are you guys aware of what that is?
Tell us.
Yeah.
Can you repeat what you said? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
One of
the specific
Biden's
policy.
Okay, so on his tax policy, he basically calls for getting rid of the step-up basis, which if you own a house, say your parents own a house, they bought it, years ago for $50,000. They pass away, and the present market value of it is $150,000. Do not pay capital gain on its appreciated value. But then if you were to sell that house while you were still alive, for the capital gain,
Kowalski,
you
you're cutting in
so
and out.
basically, if you got rid of that, I don't think I'm going to be able to help that. Maybe I'll try another time. Thanks for the call anyways.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's just
all right, buddy. Let's go back to the phones.
Oh, no.
This is Will from Kentucky.
Hi, Will from Kentucky. What would you like to talk about today? Hello? Hello?
Are you having internet problems, maybe, Matt? I'm not sure.
I think I just...
Yeah, you froze
you guys
for a
hear me?
second. Yeah, I
You
can
guys
hear you
hear me?
now.
Yeah,
All
you're
right,
back
looks
now.
all right, looks like we just did. My internet dropped for a second, and luckily I didn't completely drop. But hold on, I have to call back into the phones. If any of you want to take the mic for a minute while I do this, go ahead.
Sure. Should we do a segment? Emma talks at Jamie about sports.
Oh boy, that sounds like so much fun.
Absolutely not. I wouldn't subject you to that.
Should we do the Bernie GOP outreach clip?
I was about to say, yeah, I'll intro that. So, Bernie Sanders went on ABC News and talked about the upcoming challenges of getting a bill through the Senate, which obviously is a 50-50 split with Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker, and how that's going to be a challenge. So Biden has been trying to have has been floating that they're going to try to push the COVID relief bill through in a bipartisan manner. That seems unlikely. The second option is reconciliation. But here's Bernie's take on it.
I have no problem with reaching out to Republicans. I would prefer to do it that way. But if we hear very early on that Republicans do not want to act in a way that meets the needs of working people in this country or the middle class, sorry, we're going to do it alone. The truth of the matter is that Republicans used budget reconciliation over the years to provide massive tax breaks to the rich, to try to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We're going to use it to protect the working families and the middle class of this country.
Okay, so the thing about reconciliation is, and I'm going to critique Bernie here, you get one bill through reconciliation every fiscal year, and it could only deal with financing and budgetary concerns. So the COVID relief package could go through reconciliation. But things like the anti-corruption, pro-democracy bill, HR 1, which would be S1, that is really transformative and would be really important to rooting out corruption in our government, which obviously every Republican is united behind their corporate donors and will oppose. You can't get that through reconciliation. You need a 60-40 to get past a 60-40 filibuster. And I don't know if Bernie has updated his view on filibuster reform. I was kind of neutral on that when he was standing firm on not abolishing the filibuster. But I don't really know what he's talking about, Democrats being able to do anything alone outside of one massive bill a year if you're not abolishing the filibuster.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that the filibuster is not even in the Constitution. It's just something that they started doing, most famously to block efforts at integration after the Civil War. And then it's just the law of the land now. Like what?
Yeah, I mean,
Calhoun, baby.
Right. And it's like,
do you guys hate our democratic norms? I mean, really, come on now.
I don't not hate them.
And it's so the filibuster, it's such a colloquial term, and people don't really understand the procedural effects it has on killing anything that's going to be positive for people. But again, I still don't understand Bernie's position on this. So, I mean, I think he's talking more specifically about the targeted COVID package, but like, we have no choice. Republicans play hardball with everything. And the one thing standing in the way there of, them blocking a lot of the things that we want, like say we got rid of the filibuster, we could pass reform on elections and getting dark money out tomorrow if we didn't have the filibuster based on this 50-50 split. $15 minimum wage, you could potentially put that through reconciliation, but I think that might be hard. It's like the language is it's flimsy, but like $15 minimum wage, you could get the caucus together on that really quickly and you could pass that. So there are a bunch of things. I mean, like a more robust climate package that could combat things. Like these are important key things. And I don't know how you can do it alone if you don't get rid of that. And importantly, it seems like at least a significant majority of the Senate, the Democratic senators, including Chuck Schumer, haven't committed to like, oh, we're not going to touch filibuster reform right now.
Yeah, let's be really clear on what the filibuster does, right? And how it's connected here, because the Democrats have half of the Senate plus one, right? Kamala Harris is the tie-breaking vote. And the way that the Constitution intended it to be, you are only supposed to need that much of a majority to pass things through the Senate. What the filibuster does is it raises the threshold to 60% of the Senate, making it much, much harder for Democrats to do anything in this scenario.
And what's crazy about it too, Jamie, is like the filibuster, you also were supposed to be able to just go stand on the Senate floor and then actually filibuster, right? Now you can just basically send an email and threaten to filibuster, and then it kills the bill in its DOA before it even gets to the Senate floor. Like, that's how powerful that stupid damn procedural rule has become. And it's an impasse. We can't have what we need to have as a country without abolishing the filibuster. And if that comes back to bite Democrats in the ass, and it may, but like, you have to be aggressive here. And
yeah, well, then the Democrats might actually have to do something, right?
Right. Well, exactly. It's almost like built-in hurdles. And so, but like, again, this is the position of the most progressive member of the Senate. So like, I don't understand it, but,
well, he's been in the Senate for a really long time.
Yeah.
He is
and
an
honestly,
institutionalist.
And to be fair to him, maybe he's updated his position on this, because right now it's never been clearer that there needs to be reform in this area. Outside of these relief packages, outside of tax and spend and whatever, there needs to be more that's provided for the American people. And selfishly for the Democratic Party, like, I know maybe some of them don't really care about actually helping people. Like Kirsten Sinema comes to mind as a completely craven politician on the Democratic side in the Senate. But like, for your own asses electorally, you better get stuff done, because this is a crisis and you need to spend on behalf of people.
Right. But don't you guys think that the American people sent 50 Democratic senators and 50 Republican senators as a message where they were basically saying, we don't want anything to get done?
Yeah, it's a team of rivals.
I'm joking, but that is what I've seen some of these, these politicians say. Like, the American people sent 50 Republicans and 50 Democratic senators, and the message is that they want to see some bipartisan compromise. That's not the message. That wasn't the message. What happened was you had just enough people on the right and just enough people on the left saying, we want what we want. And that's what happened.
Well, 41 million more people that voted for the, or at least are represented by the Democratic senators. So
right, because the senators from the Republicans, from the states that sent Republicans, have less people, and unfortunately, the Senate is set up where everyone has equal representation. So the 200,000 people who live in one of the least populated states have the same amount of representation as the 10 million people who voted for one senator in one city in one state. Like,
that's garbage.
40 million. The Democrats now, with that 50-50 split, represent 40 million more Americans than the Republicans. I mean, that is a staggering statistic. And so the point about filibuster is like, that rule that isn't going to change in the very foreseeable future about the makeup of the Senate, that's already stacked in the Republicans' favor. Maybe eliminate one of them that they've used for years and years at this point to stymie anything good for happening for people.
You know what? We have this whole 1619 project, and this awareness of the structural inequality, particularly on race lines in this country. A good casualty of that for this moment would be to claim the filibuster. Let's get rid of that. All right, we don't need New York Times. I mean, look, people can read the New York Times if they want, but what we need is structural change, not just structural information or information about the structure that's oppressing us. Remove it. Let's bring this knowledge that we have now, that apparently even all liberals like to, tout. Let's actually do something with it.
Yeah, do better, Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie, this is all your fault.
Yeah,
Bernie.
Look, he's the man. We get it. He's the man. I'm just I don't.
Filibuster's got to go. It's simple. We
should be able to criticize the people that we like when they aren't living up to everything they could be doing.
100%. I mean, and do it in a targeted, smart way, as opposed to I'm going to set a flamethrower to the progressive movement way.
Close Photoshop, Bernie. Stop creating all those memes of yourself in your mittens and logging into your 100 different Twitter accounts you've set up to pretend to be various different people, tweeting them out to make it seem like there was some sort of organic pro-Bernie meme sent out yesterday. And get to work, Bernie. God. All right, let's go back to the phones. If you were whatever your name was in Kentucky, I'm sorry, was it Dan, James? I can't remember your name. If you want to call back in when my internet kicked you off, please do so. I'll put you right at the top of the list. We're going to do probably 2 more calls, so call in now. Let's go back to the phones. 647, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Norm from Toronto.
Norm, I'm sorry. Norm from Toronto. How you doing, Norm?
We love our norms, don't we, folks?
I'm doing fine, thank you. I'm actually glad I got through today for old Matt being there, because I'd been thinking about something that happened during the the activities on the 6th.
Right.
And it kind of maybe takes on a bit of a conspiratorial bent. So
Let's hear it.
So yeah, I figured it'd be right up your alley. So what I thought about was the weird thing with those GOP members who refused to wear masks, while they were in their safe room or whatever.
Right.
And it just seems strange to me because they wear them when they're actually in the chambers, right? So why were they so hesitant or actually insistent on not wearing them when they were, kind of closely gathered with other people? And what I thought maybe is that assuming the mob were to burst into that room, how would they differentiate friend from foe, or maybe allies from politicians? So the people not wearing the masks would obviously not be cucked beta males.
I don't think that's what Scalise was thinking. I got to be honest. I don't think Scalise was saying, I need that these oath keepers to know that I'm on their team once they come through.
I'll tell you one thing though. It's definitely a more well thought out conspiracy theory than the child eating pedophile satanic cabal. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I thought I'd spread that out there. Maybe, if they took some heat from some sort of unhinged,
Right. I honestly thought you were going to go like I thought you were going to say something like one of them took a test that day and knew they had COVID and wanted to purposefully spread it among all the Dems.
No.
Also possible.
Right. But that would also entail them believing that coronavirus isn't a hoax, which some of them don't don't believe that. Yeah. All right. Thanks for the call, though.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good weekend, guys.
You too. Take care. Let's go back to the phones and go to 917. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Alex from New York.
Hi, Alex from New York. What's up?
I got another round of the MR Fight Club. Who's going to win? Don Jr. versus Tucker or Melania versus Ivanka?
Ooh. I think Melania wrecks Ivanka. Wrecks her. Like right. Melania's like Ivanka's just, she a wind could blow her over, right? Like I think Melania's got little like
a mean streak.
Yeah, she's got
Eastern European vigor.
Scrappy.
Yes,
she's scrappy and she's got a lot of anger there. So like, Ivanka's probably never been spoken to in a rude way in her life to her face. Melania's like, I scratched and clawed to get to where I'm at. I have to have intercourse with this blob of an orange man. Like, I'm tough. I've dealt with worse things than fighting Ivanka. Right. And then it was Don Jr. versus Giuliani.
Don Jr. versus Tucker.
Versus Tucker.
Which I think it's hard to say
tough.
Because they're both pussies. So maybe it would be a draw.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It would be one of these things, right? But it would definitely be Tucker, I think.
I think Tucker. I think Tucker too, yeah.
Don Jr.'s never had to do a thing in his life, whereas Tucker has played the game and has gotten a show on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. So he clearly has some sort of strategic mind, which Don Jr. is just dumb and weak all around.
Yeah, and Tucker would do something like dirty to like knock him off his feet right off the bat, like a slimy fighter.
Yeah, he's definitely smarter than Don Jr., I will say. And maybe he has a fight coach or something because, he really does think he's going to lead the race war when it happens. So it's very possible that he's been training.
Don Jr. is totally one of those people who would get in someone's face, look like they were ready to fight, and be like, oh, yeah? Why don't you then fight my friend or like take on my dad or something like that instead of putting himself forward? He's one of those types, without a doubt.
Thanks, guys. I got a whole list of these. I'll call back later.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Also, don't forget,
I love that game.
Melania was caught on tape saying "fuck Christmas," which Ivanka would never have the balls to do.
Yeah.
She's bitter.
Oh, Melania is, I think, the most sympathetic of the family, and she's horrible by general standards. But in terms of that family, way better than Ivanka.
She's horrible.
If you take out the kid who's completely innocent right now, then yes.
Yeah, Barron's still young enough to be innocent.
Yeah, I mean, I think Melania is definitely the most sympathetic. I kind of fell for her when her
There's a white male though. I'm joking.
But he's really tall.
But her
We don't even know
supposed
who-
friend leaked their like personal venting session. That was pretty shitty. Remember? That was like the whole Christmas
About
thing.
Christmas, yeah. No, the Christmas thing actually, it was like, I kind of could imagine myself saying something like that.
Yeah.
I did not feel bad for her though. Shitty people have shitty friends. Melania's probably not a very good friend either.
Yeah, I mean, when the ICE deportation stuff was going on, and she wore that "I don't care, do you" thing, that was a gift from like some sort of Italian or French designer. Yeah, I mean, truly the worst people on earth.
Just because she hates Donald Trump doesn't mean that she herself is not a horrible person. And people talk about her like she's some mail order bride who came from some impoverished country in the Eastern Bloc. Like, no, that's not true. Her dad was a fairly well-to-do business owner who looks a lot like Donald Trump. So screw her.
That's really creepy. I'm going to look it up now. Her dad.
Also, we don't know Barron's politics. For all we know, Barron's going to be getting out of there ASAP. You know, we don't know. He's how old is he? Like, he's under 18. Yes, right. So he can't just up and leave if he wanted to.
Her father is not blonde, but like similar face and body.
Barron doesn't get a college basketball scholarship. He deserves to be,
Right. Well,
ridiculed.
he might be tall, but I doubt he's an athlete. Let's be real.
I don't know. Trump was apparently the best baseball player in New York City 70 years ago. So.
For a number of years, in the 70s, yeah.
Shit.
According to him.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Is there any actual anything to back that up, or is it literally
someone from Slate or something looked at city box scores for high school teams in the 70s, and Trump had 14 at bats, no hits, and 1 walk basically.
Right. There you go.
All right.
And also, baseball seems a pretty easy sport for Donald Trump to go over to the pitcher and be like, "Hey, lob me an easy one. I'll give you a 50," and stuff like that.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of good baseball deals in the 20s.
Yeah, he would not. In the old days of baseball, he definitely would have been part of those bribery schemes to throw games and stuff like that. The game.
I mean, his dad might have been. I mean, his dad
100%. Yeah,
maybe a little bit too young at that point, but I don't know. If he was old enough, he might have been in on that action.
Yeah,
right. It's a good deal. Let's. I guess one more call and then some IMs, and that's the show. All right. I don't know if this is that person. So whoever this caller is either the person who got kicked off before or a lucky caller who just called in and is getting their call picked up right away. Let's see. The area code looks familiar though. 513. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Nick from New York.
This isn't who I thought it was, but okay, Nick, what's up? How you doing? What would you like to talk about today?
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, it could have suited Patty, but anyway, I had a question about general unions. So I do metalwork, mostly on art sculptures and stuff. I'm working on the Anish Kapoor sculpture in downtown Manhattan right now. And I joined the IWW recently, the Industrial Workers of the World. And I want to be in a union. I want to support workers' rights in general, but it seems like there's no union for general purpose workers. I mean, there's the Teamsters for transportation workers, but there's nothing for just general construction. And I guess what I'm wondering is there any future in the IWW and unions like that, or are we living in a post-union world? I guess.
Ooh, that is a very sad. That is a very sad question. The IWW is very near and dear to my heart because it is a model of truly autonomous labor organizing outside of the traditional union bureaucracy. It's a model of social justice unionism that cares about things beyond the narrow material interests of its members. But I gotta say, it kind of hit its high watermark in the 1930s. And hasn't had that many victories since and doesn't have a ton of members, but I still like what they do, and they're still organizing and they're still doing stuff. And that is the model that I would like to see grow. It's not a great time for organized labor. Less than 10% of the private sector workers in this country are organized. I think it's maybe like 7%. Got to check that stat. But I think this creates a real opening for orgs like the IWW to come in, because there are so many right to work states. The Janus decision was another blow for the existing labor bureaucracy. But, there are pros and cons to that, because having a labor bureaucracy means that they have to follow the laws once they're institutionalized in that way. They have to follow the rules. They have to follow the laws. They're a lot less like they don't want their employees to go out on strike. The reason we have wildcat strikes is because there are times when the rank and file wants to go on strike and the leadership of the unions don't want them to. And guess what? They do it anyway. So I'm cautiously optimistic. We've seen a lot of autonomous organizing in previously totally non-union sectors that have barely been touched by organized labor, like people who work at Amazon, for example. So, my hope is that this will be a chance for the labor movement to, build back better, as they say.
Yeah, I agree. I think the future in the labor movement, or like any possibility of a future that like is as effective as it was in the 30s, is in like big institutions like Amazon, and seeing like them start to organize and make progress towards that is making me hopeful for a future with it. But anyway, I don't really have much productive to say. I just want to get your opinion. So thanks for taking my call.
Of course. I will always engage in labor talk for as much as anyone wants. And that's not to say that the existing unions are bad. Everyone should join them. I had healthcare for some years through my husband's membership in a building trades union, and those unions are very conservative in a lot of ways, but they get great benefits for their members. But if we really want to push forward to human liberation, we're going to have to go past that model.
Totally. And I mean, anything we can do to help like keep a union alive, even if they're on life support right now. I mean, it's not gonna get better without like active boots on the ground doing the little work they can. But yeah, I hear you.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
All right. Oh my God, I gotta mention this really quick. I know I was gonna go to IMs, but I see you guys talking about it in the chat. So apparently, Tim Pool. Could someone pull up the Jacobin cover, please? Apparently, Tim Pool. I don't know if I can do this without laughing. So apparently, Tim Pool and his co-hosts, his crew on his podcast, spent a whole segment talking about the latest cover page of the latest Jacobin issue. And it's quite the cover. It's very funny. It's very well done. And apparently they didn't realize it was supposed to be funny. They didn't realize it was satirical. They think Jacobin actually views Joe Biden and Democratic leadership as some sort of, I guess, like saints. Do you want to play this 1 minute clip? That
I think we got to save this one for Sam, unfortunately.
Okay. I just had to mention it because now I've got to go and watch it. But let's get to some all right, some IMs. Let's see. MSNB Cedar. Ooh, I like that username. Damn, do I love me some David Dayen interview days. Yes, Dayen's always great. Casey Kasem Soleimani. Old Matt, are you aware that I've declared that the Thursday Fun Half is now called the kids table? That's been what people have called this for generations. I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah. Fabu Cat says, hi, Matt. You said that it'd take 6 months for Parler to get back online. Well, I never said 6 months. I never gave it a date, I don't believe. But Parler is not back online. them putting up some landing page where it says we're coming back, and it has some basic. It looks like they faked what looks like Parler posts to put some statements on their website. That's not Parler. That's just a landing page that anyone could put up in like 10 minutes without any real need for a server of any sort of value to be able to keep it up. It's fairly low rent, low energy right there. That's not Parler. They're not up until their whole social media platform is back up, and it's not up yet. V says Thursday Fun Half is officially the 90s kids only show. What? Hopefully you guys can get the guy from Eve 6 on, since he's been cool as hell on Twitter.
Oh my God.
I saw that.
No,
Yes,
he hasn't.
I love that so much.
I feel like he's been mixed on Twitter is what my understanding is. I don't think cool as hell
Yeah.
is the full picture.
And Winora says, yeah, okay, AOC, but striking workers aren't real working class like QAnon demonologists and YouTube show hosts. Did you guys see? I think it was the New York Times. They were one of the many outlets to cover the QAnon meltdown yesterday, and they got a really great quote from a QAnon person who basically said something like, a lot of YouTube journalists lost some credibility after yesterday. And they said it completely serious without any sort of tongue-in-cheekness. It's like, YouTube journalists losing credibility. Didn't know many of them had. Chardonnay Socialist says, should AOC primary Schumer or Gillibrand? Well, Gillibrand's not up for re-election for quite some time now. Wasn't she just re-elected recently?
Yes. Soft G. Gillibrand.
Well,
I was an Gillibrand intern in high school, so I would know.
Oh my God.
Emma's part of the establishment. Ooh, okay.
Either or. AOC could primary Schumer. I would support that, but I feel like Sam wants to do that, so maybe she should stay in Congress for now.
Yeah.
Right.
In the House.
Look at Jamie telling the woman of color to get out of the white man's way.
AOC, stand back and stand by.
Or do it. I don't care. No, it'd be great.
Why don't you run, Jamie?
Oh yeah, let me run as an anarchist-leaning communist. I'm sure that'll go over really great with the voters of New York.
Have you seen the mayoral candidates? I mean, really, you should just throw your hat in the ring there, and it would really not be as out there as you think.
Oh, Matt, I only seriously think about running for office when I'm candy flipping. So talk to me then, and I'll be more receptive.
Okay, will do.
Couple more.
But a couple more, and then we'll call it a shot. Like 2 minutes more. Bear at home too. Bernie would have won, and Trump would have handled 9/11 better. Thursday's political commentary needs to get much better. What does that have to do with anything? I don't know if Trump would have handled 9/11 better. That remains to be seen. I mean, we'll never know because he wasn't the president on 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty huge. That's why counterfactuals like that aren't terribly. You can only go by the work they actually did.
Right. Fadeaway Jr. says, hey, new Matt, unless I'm mistaken, that was Jason Whitlock on with Tucker, right? It was. He had a history of blaming black people for their own problems. Namely, he had takes like thugs, glorifying prison culture and rap music, and why blacks can't get ahead. Yeah, that's
also, yeah, he in like 2012, he was talking about how black quarterbacks have intellectual development issues. So, I mean, yeah, gross, disgusting guy.
Right. Dave Rubin's high-level idea says the Karl Rove dance has killed my will to live. Jay Tingle says that Rove video ended David Gregory's career. I wish. Radical Cedarist Party says, can we stop calling Biden a rapist? The Tara Reid story has been debunked several times by now. But has it?
No.
Right. Mutz Butts says, nice Carly Simon reference, old Matt. Why, thank you. Dummy says, hopefully you haven't covered already, but would anyone have a good starting point for understanding the Guaido Maduro stuff? Do you know, Matt?
I mean, I think this is a longer conversation.
Right now, that's what he's asking for. Like a good starting point. Like a place to go and get the
I mean,
yell.
Besides like previous TMBS stuff, I'd have to look up a specific resource.
All right. Mutz also says Manchin wouldn't support getting rid of the filibuster. Right. Well, we just have to give West Virginia everything they want, and Joe Manchin will have no choice but to vote with the Dems. But is Joe Manchin really the only person we have to worry about? Who mentioned Sinema before?
Sinema, Coons. I mean, there's a bunch of asshole Democrats.
There's a lot of bad ones.
Right.
I wonder if I think Coons might be on board just because, like they're trying
Biden.
Because of Biden.
Mark Kelly.
He's the inside guy, but he's also going to be a problem, I think. Like, to the extent Biden does shit we don't like, it's going to be Coons put in the glove.
Coons is his
Ossoff will probably
Senate
position
proxy.
himself that way too, eventually.
Yeah.
Coach McGurk says, don't let Jamie ever leave the show or I will protest outside of Sam's house. Jamie, I'm going to need you to leave the show so I can see a mass protest outside of Sam's house.
I'll take it under consideration.
Oh, I got a source for that guy. Hugo Chavez and the Bolivarian Revolution by Richard Gott is a book I read that I found interesting about Venezuela.
There you go. Josh from Chicago says silence from Brianna Joy Gray on Hunts Point. I guess if it's not online for her, it doesn't exist.
We don't need to police what people are and aren't commenting like other people do, I think.
I don't talk about everything on Twitter that I pay attention to or that I even talk about on my show or this show.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, right. It's just.
And let's not open up this right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I still like Brie. Generally, we don't agree on everything, but I think she is a good faith actor.
Right, and here's a good way to. There's two more IMs I'll read here. Champagne Communista says, yo, what's the deal with Bernie looking grumpy at the inauguration? There's a feminist reason why showing your true emotions is actually problematic. Something about emotional labor. I'm JK. They're joking. Did you guys see that tweet about
Yeah, she retracted that. Like, Bernie, do some emotional labor. And she said, today I was wrong.
I mean, first of all,
nice.
The idea that Bernie was mean mugging the entire, like, there's plenty of pictures of him waving. You literally captured, it's a single moment, a photo. It's a millisecond in time. You can't take everything from that, but it didn't stop the Bernie haters from doing it. And the final IM of the day, Trumpy Bear says, when Helga grows up into Olga. What? Oh, when we were talking about Helga Pataki before, right? I don't know.
Yeah, the Hey Arnold chick.
Yeah, right.
Isn't Olga a different person? I don't know.
Isn't that, it's her sister, I think, right? She has an older sister.
Yeah. But
right.
Final IM.
I guess that's the final I am. I wasn't ready to read that one as the final.
All right,
hey guys.
See you guys.
Oh wait, here we go. Here's a good one. ASIAC. Here's a good one. Special fuck you to all the transphobes out there this morning crying over Biden's executive order on discrimination. Absolutely, 100%. Did you guys see that?
Turf tears make
Yes.
my day.
All right, guys, youtube.com/Matt Binder for the YouTube live stream of my show, doomedpod.com for the podcast version of the show. If you'd like to support the show, patreon.com/Matt Binder. Otherwise, Nomiki show's at 3, right, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And then I'll be back on next week, but the MR crew will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie.